Chapter 463. The owner of the 20th hunting island was puzzled. How could the turnover have doubled all of a sudden? The plump manager replied, "It's a VIP, 30 million for a year." The owner of the 20th hunting island was slightly surprised. "Who is it?" The plump manager replied, "A VIP with the surname Mo." The owner asked again, "Which faction does Chong belong to?" The plump manager shook his head. "I haven't had the time to check." The owner thought for a moment and said, "Check, but don't make too much noise. We have to be careful with such a person." The plump manager nodded. "Understood." With the power of the 20th hunting island, it didn't take too long to check a person's information. In just a few minutes, the information about Mo Sure had been sent to the plump manager's multifunction watch. He quickly opened the information and read it to the owner. Mo Sure, the new owner of the first hunting island. He slaughtered the entire 10th hunting island alone. He killed a member of the dragon clan in seconds and is suspected to have slaughtered the strongest sects in the 16 prefectures, the Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water sects. The plump manager's voice became lower and lower as he read. Finally he stopped. The owner's eyes widened. Some time ago, he heard that the 10th hunting island had been slaughtered, and it was by a single person. He didn't expect it to be this young man. According to the information, the 10th hunting island had invited no less than 100 hunters. This young man had killed so many desolate hunters by himself. Just how strong was he? The most shocking thing was that he killed a member of the dragon clan in seconds, even though he knew that there was a member of the dragon clan present. One had to know that the dragon clan was the strongest faction in the entire Flaming Land back then. He dared to slaughter the dragon clan in front of so many people. This matter was definitely not simple. A few days ago, the entire dragon clan had been slaughtered. Thinking of this, the owner seemed to have discovered a huge secret. This young man with the surname Mo was very likely to be a super expert who had slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Although this sounded ridiculous, nothing was impossible on the Flaming Dawn continent. Moreover, even if he wasn't the one who had slaughtered the dragon clan, the fact that he dared to kill a member of the dragon clan in seconds on the 10th hunting island was enough to prove that he was somehow related to the super expert who had slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Thinking of this, the island master asked the fat manager, "When you received this Mo? Island master, just now, you didn't neglect anything, right?" Although he knew that the fat manager always did things flawlessly, he was still very confident in manager Mo. However, this was a matter of great importance, so he had to confirm it again. The fat manager shook his head repeatedly. "Island master, don't worry. I've always been very polite to any guest. Let alone this distinguished guest." After saying that, the fat manager's forehead was already covered in sweat. Although he had done a perfect job just now, he was dealing with a young man who was related to the dragon clan, the #1 force on the continent. If there was even the slightest negligence, just thinking about it made him scared. The fat manager wiped the sweat off his forehead without leaving a trace and asked, "Island Lord, should we remind the other people on the island to be careful when they meet Island Lord Mo?" The island master thought for a moment and shook his head. "That's not necessary. If there are too many traces of our involvement in this matter, I'm afraid it will arouse his displeasure. Let nature take its course." If an ordinary person heard the words "let nature take its course," they would probably be a little dumbfounded. What did it mean to let nature take its course? But who was the fat manager? Reading people's minds was his forte. He quickly understood the island master's meaning. In the face of such a powerful existence, anything one did would be in vain. It was better to let nature take its course, as long as one was careful and did not provoke him. As for the others, they could do whatever they wanted. At this moment, Mo Sure had already arrived at the 20th hunting ground. The 20th hunting ground was called the Hell Python Planet. It got its name because there were many kinds of terrifying pythons on the planet. Generally speaking, the creator was fair. Poisonous snakes were not big in size, and the big pythons were basically not poisonous. However, on this planet, due to the deliberate control of the 20th hunting ground, the bigger the python, the more poisonous it was. Take the tax room as an example. The strongest python on this planet was a level 10 mutated wild beast, which was equivalent to a level 10 desolate hunter. However, due to the existence of extremely powerful toxins, their strength was far stronger than a level 10 desolate hunter. Therefore, even a level 10 desolate hunter could only retreat in the face of such a python. At this time, Mo Shi was at the teleportation coordinates. These coordinates were not built in the wilderness. The Hell Python planet was too dangerous. Therefore, the 3 coordinates were all in 3 bases. These 3 bases were specially built on the 20th hunting ground. Around the bases, there were energy shields for defense. And there were all kinds of thermal weapons and super weapons for defense. Once those pythons and ghouls tried to attack the bases, they would be blasted into pieces by these thermal weapons. Of course, after so many years, these pythons and ghouls had learned to be smart. They would not attack these bases rashly. However, once someone came out of the bases, they would use all kinds of methods to kill them. The people who came here for training had not reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master. Therefore, their various abilities were not too outstanding. And those who had reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master would have made great progress in various aspects of their body. Speed, strength, explosive force, agility, and other aspects would be greatly improved. Therefore, it was not too dangerous for a Grand Desolate Master to go to the 21st or 22nd hunting ground. On the contrary, the 20th hunting ground was the most dangerous one. The annual mortality rate was among the top 30 hunting grounds. When Mo Shi walked out of the teleportation coordinates, a middle-aged woman immediately came up to him. Although she looked middle-aged on the surface, she did not make people feel that she was old at all. On the contrary, she made people feel that she was more feminine. Every move of hers could stir a man's heart. She had a friendly smile on her face and said to Mo Shi, "Mr. Mo, welcome, welcome." Mo Shi plundered her memory and checked it. It turned out that she was also a staff member of the 20th hunting ground. She received a message from the manager telling her to carry out her orders well. Mo Shi nodded. The woman introduced herself. "My name is Wei. People here call me Sister Wei. Mr. Mo, you can call me by my name." Mo Shi looked at this woman. She was not so charming nor so vulgar. But even if she flipped her long hair, it would make a man's heart beat. Of course, compared to Happiness, she was not so beautiful and pure. Compared to Maya, her figure was not so hot. Therefore, Mo Shi did not say much. He just nodded. "You are older than me. I'll call you Sister Wei." And Wei saw that Mo Shi was not surprised by her appearance and was a little surprised. At the same time she clutched her chest. "Mr. Mo's words are a little hurtful." Chapter 464. Mo Shi was welcomed into the first base by Wei. The 3 bases on the Infernal Python Star had the best defensive facilities and living facilities in the Flaming Origin continent. The rank 10 Desolate Hunters who came to the Infernal Python Star to train would usually stay in the base. If they wanted to train, they would leave the base to hunt desolate beasts. Wei brought Mo Shi all the way into the living area. They then passed through the entertainment hall. Along the way, many people came to greet Wei. "Hello, Sister Wei." "Oh, Sister Wei. Is this your brother?" "Sister Wei, are you free to have dinner with us tonight?" Wei also warmly returned their greetings. However, although she was also very warm to others, she seemed very approachable. In fact, everyone knew that Wei was a woman who was very difficult to win over. Firstly, her strength had reached the level of a grand hunter. She looked down on these desolate hunters. Secondly, in this base she was the absolute leader. Regardless of strength or status, she was higher than these desolate hunters who came out to train. If these people wanted to pursue her, it would naturally be very difficult. However, when Wei spoke to Mo Shi, that kind of feeling made people feel very intimate. "Mr. Mo, this way please." Wei's face was brimming with a charming smile. Mo Shi nodded and followed her out of the entertainment hall. Everyone in the hall looked at the back of the 2 people as they left and started to discuss in low voices. "Who exactly is that kid? Is he Sister Wei's gigolo? Looking at that kid's appearance, I feel unhappy. Are you jealous? Ha ha ha. Aren't you jealous?" Saying this seemed to poke at the sore spot of every man present. Damn, I just haven't reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master. If I had reached the level of a Grand Desolate Master, I would definitely pursue Sister Wei. Who wouldn't? Soon, Wei brought Mo Shi to a standalone room that looked like a villa. She introduced with a charming smile. "This is a standalone villa that our base specially uses to entertain VIPs. Mr. Mo, you can rest assured that no one will disturb you here. If you need anything, there's a pager here." I will arrange for people to be on standby 24 hours a day. Mo sure didn't act coquettishly. He nodded and said, "Thank you, Sister Wei." And Wei shook her head. "You're our honored guest, and this is something we ought to do." Mo sure thought for a moment before saying, "Sister Wei, which part of the infernal python star has the most ghouls and snakes? It would be best if they are at the desolate hunter level." Sister Wei said, "The place with the most ghouls is the ghoul swamp." However, in terms of numbers, they were still no match for the Yama forest. There were many snakes there. In the Yama forest, there was a snake valley. It was a kingdom of snakes. Every snake had reached the level of a mutated desolate beast. They are equivalent to desolate hunters. Hearing this, Mo sure was secretly delighted. Then he said to Sister Wei, "Okay, I understand." Sister Wei asked, "What's the matter? Is Mr. Mo thinking of going there? It's too dangerous there. I suggest that Mr. Mo doesn't go there." Mo sure said, "Well, thanks for the reminder. However, I have something important to do, so I have to go there." And Wei said, "If Mr. Mo insists on going, I can send a few people to go with you. I can accompany you personally. That's the safest way." Mo sure shook his head. "There's no need." Hearing Mo sure's words, and Wei did not insist. She only said, "Mr. Mo, you have to be careful. You have to prepare enough life-saving items." Mo sure nodded. "Okay." And Wei saw that Mo sure had no intention of continuing the conversation, but she tactfully said, "Mr. Mo, you should rest early." "Then you should rest early, Mr. Mo. If you need anything, just press the call button and we'll get it done for you immediately." Mo sure nodded again. "Okay." And Wei left the room and returned to her office a few minutes later. After thinking for a moment, she called the island master. "Island master, Mr. Mo wants to go to the Yama forest and even Snake Island." The island master was silent for a moment before asking, "Why is he going there?" And Wei shook her head. "I don't know either. However, that place is extremely dangerous. Even a grand desolate master has to be extremely careful. Mr. Mo might be in danger if he goes alone. I plan to send a few people to protect him, but he said there's no need. So, should we send someone to protect him in secret?" The island master pondered for a moment before replying. He might be related to the person who slaughtered the dragon clan. He might be the person who slaughtered the dragon clan. Since he said there's no problem, we don't have to worry. If we interfere too much, we might arouse his displeasure. And Wei nodded when she heard this. "Understood, Isle Master." After ending the call, and Wei recalled the island master's words and could not help but be shocked. That young man might be the person who slaughtered the dragon clan? The psychological impact of this news was too great. She needed some time to digest it. The next morning, Mo sure slept until 11 o'clock before waking up. After he finished washing up, he pressed the beeper. "Bring me breakfast." The other side immediately responded, "Yes, Mr. Mo." In less than a minute, 2 attendants had already walked in with a food delivery cart. The breakfast was very sumptuous, enough for 5 people. Mo sure naturally did not stand on ceremony. He had spent 30 million for a year, so it was natural for them to prepare a sumptuous breakfast for him. As for Happy and Emma, Missouri sure did not let them come out. In the miniature world, Mo sure had already prepared a lot of ingredients for them, so they could make it themselves. After finishing breakfast, Mo sure flapped his wings and left the base. Those who saw Mo sure leave were all slightly surprised. This guy is so arrogant. He actually went outside the base alone on this hell python star. He's not arrogant. He's just an idiot. He thinks he's very powerful, but he doesn't understand how terrifying this hell python star is. I say, in less than 10 minutes, this guy will either be scared back or die outside. It's best if he dies outside. While they were discussing, a few inconspicuous middle-aged men were sitting in the corner of the restaurant. One of them said, "This is the only reason we came to the hell python star this time. Other than that, don't cause any more trouble." The others nodded. "Understood." That person continued, "There are many snake-type desolate beasts in the Yama forest. Everyone must be careful. Especially in the Snake Valley, it's extremely dangerous. So everyone must take protective measures. In short, now that the Dragon Clan has been destroyed, it's time for us to welcome the Phoenix Master back. When the others heard this, their eyes flashed with fanaticism as they said in low voices, "Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent." Chapter 465. Infernal Python Planet, Base Number 1, in the corner of the restaurant. A few people in ordinary clothes who didn't seem to attract any attention said in a low voice, "Welcome back, Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back, Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back, Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent." The leader said, "Have the other brothers arrived?" "We've divided into 5 groups. The first 3 groups have already set off for Yama Jungle. The other 2 groups have already arrived at Hunting Island 20. They'll be here soon." The leader nodded. "Okay, let's go to Yama Jungle after we finish our meal." "Yes." Mo sure didn't use teleportation after leaving the base. It was his first time here, and he wanted to see what kind of world this was. After flying at subsonic speed for about 10 minutes, a shadow suddenly shot up from the forest below at an extremely fast speed. Fortunately, Mo sure's dragons will happen to scan the area below and caught the shadow instantly. He leaned to the side. Whoosh! That black shadow almost brushed past Mo sure's chest as it flew past. At this time, Mo sure already knew what the black shadow was. It was a feather more than a meter long. And the feather had energy attached to it. After Mo sure dodged the feather, it flew up for about 2 kilometers before falling to the ground. When it landed, it actually nailed deeply into a huge rock that was about the height of a person on the ground with a cracking sound. Only the feather tail of more than a foot long was left outside. Mo sure's dragons will immediately swept down. He found that it was a bird-type wild beast that attacked him. This bird-type wild beast was about 30 meters long and 15 meters wide. Its feathers were black. Only the hair on the top of its head was white. Mo sure checked its level frowny face species, white-headed arrow eagle. Level 3 mutant wild beast. Mo sure was a little puzzled. This kind of thing could actually attack humans. The strangest thing was that it could shoot its feathers out like arrows. At this time, the white-headed arrow eagle saw that its attack missed and didn't continue fighting. It turned around, flapped its wings, and flew southeast. Mo sure sneered. "Do you think you can just leave after attacking me?" At the thought of this, his dragon will moved and blasted towards the white-headed arrow condor. Bang! The white-headed arrow eagle instantly exploded into a bloody mist. Mo sure shook his head and ignored him, continuing to fly forward. However, after flying for about 2 minutes, another white-headed arrow eagle appeared in front of him. This time, the white-headed arrow eagle didn't shoot any feathers at him. Instead, it flapped its wings and kept squeaking. Mo sure stopped. This white-headed arrow eagle seemed to have something on its mind. "What's the matter with a bird looking for me?" Puzzled, he used his mind to plunder the white-headed arrow condor's memories. After looking through its memories, Mo sure finally understood what was going on. It turned out that the white-headed arrow eagle had a nest nearby. And now, a large number of ghouls were invading their lair. The adult white-headed arrow eagles had all fled. However, it was their breeding season, and there were many fledglings in their nests that had not yet learned how to fly. The adult white-headed arrow eagles could only return and fight with the ghouls. However, in terms of intelligence, these white-headed arrow eagles were far inferior to the ghouls. The white-headed arrow eagles suffered heavy casualties. As a result, these white-headed arrow eagles had no choice but to ask for help. Of course, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't ask for help from humans. However, they were helpless at this moment. Previously, the white-headed arrow eagle wanted to stop Mo sure. However, they didn't know how to speak human language, so they could only use their feathers to shoot at Mo sure. Then, they deliberately led him in the direction of the white-headed arrow eagle's nest. However, they didn't expect that this human didn't chase after them at all. Instead, he directly used his mind power to crush the white-headed arrow eagle's body. The other white-headed arrow eagles also witnessed this. This gave them a glimmer of hope. This human was so powerful, he should be able to chase away those ghouls. That was why this white-headed arrow eagle risked its life to block in front of Mo Sure. If Mo Sure killed this white-headed arrow eagle, there would be a third, fourth, and 10th white-headed arrow eagle blocking his path. Although they didn't speak the same language, they believed that through this series of strange actions, this human should understand that they must have something special to ask of him. They were very lucky that Mo Sure had the memory plunder skill. Otherwise, they might really have to sacrifice themselves one by one. They didn't know how many sacrifices they had to make before Mo Sure understood their intentions. At the same time, Mo Sure felt slightly apologetic. Just now, the white-headed arrow eagle had come to ask for help. In the end, he didn't understand what it meant and directly killed it. Mo Sure thought for a moment and used his mind to communicate with the white-headed arrow eagle. Let's go and save your children. The white-headed arrow eagle 100 meters away was originally in despair. It was certain that this human would definitely not understand what it meant. They had to continuously block this human to make him understand. Therefore, it was used as cannon fodder. However, at this moment, a thought suddenly appeared in its mind, giving it a fright. It almost forgot to flap its wings. Mo Sure used his mind to communicate with it. Why are you still in a daze? If you wait any longer, I'm afraid your children will all die. As he spoke, he had already flapped his wings and flew in the direction of the white-headed arrow eagle's nest. The white-headed arrow eagle was stunned again. How did this human know the direction of their nest? However, at this moment, it didn't care about these things. It had to solve this crisis first. Then, the man and the bird quickly flew toward the cliff 50 kilometers away. At this moment, at the cliff 50 kilometers away. The cliff here was like the pages of a book, layer by layer. Many huge nests were built on each layer. This kind of terrain could not only shelter them from the wind and rain, but it was also very suitable for the fledglings to fly for the first time. Therefore, this was a very ideal place for the white-headed arrow eagles to build their nests. Therefore, every year during the breeding season, there would be thousands of white-headed arrow eagles to build their nests here. However, at this moment, on these 1,000-layer cliffs, there were ghouls crawling everywhere. They constantly climbed into these nests and twisted the necks of these white-headed arrow eagle fledglings. As for those adult white-headed arrow eagles, they constantly shot out feathers. Those ghouls were very agile. Most of them were able to dodge these feathers that were shot out. Only a very small portion of them would be hit by these feathers. However, these ghouls were like zombies. Even if they were hit by the feathers, as long as their heads weren't hit, they could still move freely. Moreover, many ghouls actually knew how to use bows and arrows. And their bows and arrows were imbued with the energy in their bodies, which would cause serious damage to these white-headed arrow eagles. Just like this, both sides continued to fight with arrows. However, relatively speaking, the ghouls' intelligence was equivalent to that of humans. Therefore, the white-headed arrow eagles with lower intelligence were completely suppressed. Chapter 466. At this moment, the battle on the 1,000-level cliff had reached its climax. Of course, this was just a nicer way of putting it. To put it bluntly, it was actually a one-sided massacre of the white-headed arrow eagles by the ghouls. As long as the white-headed arrow eagles didn't hit the ghouls' heads, these ghouls could quickly recover in a short period of time. On the other hand, the arrows of these ghouls didn't all have energy, but also corpse poison. The energy was used to break through the defense, and as long as the corpse poison touched a little, it would turn into rotten flesh in a short period of time. When the white-headed arrow eagles were in the air, they only relied on a pair of wings, so they naturally weren't that agile in dodging. Therefore, at this moment, 600 to 700 white-headed arrow eagles had already been killed. Mo Sure had already flown to the top of the cliff. With a sweep of his dragon's consciousness, he discovered that there were more than 30,000 ghouls on the cliff below. These ghouls looked a little like humans, but their skin was gray. Each of them was very thin, almost like skin wrapped around bones. The eyeballs on their faces were very large, almost occupying a third of their faces. Each ghoul was basically a level 4 desolate hunter. At this moment, some ghouls pulled the white-headed arrow eagle's chicks out of the nest and opened their mouths to bite. Some ghouls used long vines to pierce through the bodies of the white-headed arrow eagle's chicks one after another, as if they were wearing a long stick of candied haws. Some of the white-headed arrow eagle's eggs that hadn't hatched yet were knocked open by the ghouls from the outside. Then they sucked the juice inside from this hole. The white-headed arrow eagle that brought Wuxia back screamed miserably when it saw this miserable situation. The rest of the white-headed arrow eagles saw that the reinforcements were only one person, and a human at that. Their hearts were filled with despair. Humans had always been at odds with desolate beasts like them. Basically, when they met, they would kill the other party. This time, they actually brought back a human reinforcements. This was simply too stupid. Wuxia didn't care about what these white-headed arrow eagles were thinking. He only wanted to collect kill points now. However, he had always been a person who would test the situation before doing anything. Therefore, he didn't directly make a move. Instead, he plundered the memories of a ghoul and checked them. He discovered that in addition to the 30,000 ghouls here, there were also a large number of ghouls in the willow-wisp swamp not far away. Wuxia couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. Then, the dragons were swept across the area. A ghoul that had just caught the white-headed arrow eagle exploded into a bloody mist with a bang. This gave the ghoul beside him a fright. But the ghoul hadn't reacted yet. Bang! He also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Bang 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 bang. The ghouls exploded one after another. Above the 1,000-layer broken cliff, blood mist suddenly rose. The ghouls were scared stiff by this sudden and bizarre scene. When they saw their fellow clansmen exploding one after another, their hearts were filled with fear. They no longer dared to stop. They either fled in all directions or hid. However, these were of no use in front of Wuxia's dragon will. Some were hiding behind trees. Bang! Some of them were hiding in caves. Bang! How many of them managed to escape more than 1,000 meters away? Bang! How many managed to escape more than 10,000 meters away? Bang! Some even jumped into the river below the cliff, hiding deep in the mud. Bang! A blood-red wave burst out of the river. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in a short 10 seconds. The bodies of the ghouls, without exception, all exploded into a cloud of blood mist. More than 30,000 ghouls caused Wuxia's kill points to soar by 30,000. This was also something that happened in a short 10 seconds. Seeing the kill points in his mind soar, this feeling of exploding made Wuxia's heart beat faster. At this time, his kill points had already reached 264,338. As long as he went to the willow-wisp swamp and killed the remaining 100,000 or so ghouls, he would be able to increase his kill points by another 100,000 or so. At this time, the white-headed arrow eagle's followers, who had been in despair, were stunned for a moment when they saw the scene in front of them. After coming back to their senses, they immediately became excited. The frequency of flapping their wings was much faster than before. They were saved. Their children were saved. And the person who saved them and their children was actually a human. This was really unbelievable to them. One had to know that when they met humans in the past, they either avoided each other from afar or fought a bloody battle. Who would have thought that one day, a human would actually save them from the danger of extinction? This time, they had sent out more than 100 of their kind to ask for help. Basically, these same kind of people had all gone to ask for help from other mutated desolate beasts. But these same kind of people either went and did not return, or they returned in failure. But they did not expect that in the end. It was actually these same kind of people who usually looked a little stupid, who found this human and saved their entire race. This was really out of their expectations. However, while these white-headed arrow eagles were surprised and grateful, Wuxia was considering whether to kill these white-headed arrow eagles as well. After all, this was also a few hundred kill points. However, after thinking for a moment, Wuxia still gave up on this plan. If there was really no other way to obtain kill points, he would naturally kill these white-headed arrow eagles. But now, on this planet, there was a large amount of kill points for him to extract. With such a small amount of kill points, let's forget about it for now. These adult white-headed arrow eagles returned to their nests one after another. After checking on the chicks, they flapped their wings and flew up. They lined up neatly in the sky. 1 in the first row, 2 in the second row, 3 in the third row. Then, almost at the same time, they chirped, "Ah!" More than 300 white-headed arrow eagles, whose bodies were more than 30 meters long, chirped at the same time. The scene was quite spectacular. This was the highest form of etiquette for them to express their gratitude. But this spectacular scene, compared to the 6 adult white-headed arrow eagles' corpses and the hundreds of chicks' corpses on the ground, seemed a little tragic. Wuxia knew from their memories that this was their etiquette. He nodded and did not say anything else. A pair of wings condensed from energy flapped and flew in the direction of the smoke and fire swamp. Behind him, more than 300 white-headed arrow eagles chirped at the same time. Ah! More than 10 minutes after Mo Shi left, in a nest in the middle of the 1,000-layer broken cliff, a small white-headed arrow eagle broke out of its shell. But its appearance was different from ordinary white-headed arrow eagles. On its head, there was a feather sticking up high. When its parents saw this white-headed arrow eagle, they could not help but be stunned. Then they suddenly chirped at the sky. Ah! When the rest of the white-headed arrow eagles heard this chirp, they were all stunned. Then they hurriedly flew to this nest. When they saw this newly born white-headed arrow eagle, they all chirped at the sky, just like its parents. Ah! Chapter 467. Mo Shi didn't know what was happening behind him, because he put all his attention on the will-o-wisp swamp in front of him. According to the memories of the previous ghoul, there were more than 100,000 ghouls in the will-o-wisp swamp. Although these ghouls were only equivalent to a level 4 desolate hunter. But after all, it was an unfamiliar place, so Mo Shi was still very careful. At this time, the sun was setting in the west, and the sky was gradually getting dark. In the dark swamp, faint green will-o-wisps had already appeared. This was very common in the will-o-wisp swamp. This was also the reason why the will-o-wisp swamp was so named. In the middle of the night, seeing these green the wisps would make one's hair stand on end. But Mo Shi used his dragon's will to investigate and found out the truth of these will-o-wisps. It turned out that these were just the eyes of the ghouls. But the strange thing was that the eyes of the ghouls in other places didn't emit a faint green light at night. Only the ghouls in the will-o-wisp swamp would emit this faint green light at night. So there must be something strange about this. But for so many years, not many people went to the will-o-wisp swamp to investigate. In the past 1,000 years, there were a few desolate masters who went to investigate. However, most of them never returned. And the only desolate master who came back not only didn't find anything, but after he came back, he slowly began to go crazy. He first began to believe in the existence of God. Then he said that everything in the world was under the control of God. Finally, he slowly began to become depressed. In the end, he ended his life by committing suicide. The owner of the 20th hunting island, as the owner of this planet, should have figured out the truth of the will-o-wisp swamp. But even the desolate masters couldn't return safely from the will-o-wisp swamp, so they naturally didn't dare to investigate. And as long as they didn't go to the willow-wisp swamp, other places were actually very normal. So later, the 20th hunting island would give everyone who came to experience a special warning. Don't go to the willow-wisp swamp. Mo Shi was naturally told about this. But it was a bit unreasonable to leave so many kill points and not take them. And after evolving into a demonic dragon, the adventurous genes in his genes kept urging him to go to the willow-wisp swamp. Mo Shi decided to go and take a look. Most importantly, he had the miniature world. When he encountered danger that he couldn't avoid, he would directly hide in the miniature world. If hiding for a day wasn't enough, then he would hide for a year. If 1 year was not enough, then he would hide for 10 years. No matter how strong the enemy was, they were still people of this universe. It was impossible for it to affect his miniature world. Soon, Mo Shi entered the Ghostfire Swamp. The Willow-Wisp Swamp was extremely large. Although it was said that there were over 100,000 ghouls, they were actually spread out over 100,000 square kilometers of swamp. On average, there was only 1 ghoul per square kilometer. Mo Shi activated his dragon will and enveloped an area with a radius of 500 kilometers. The closer his dragon will was, the more powerful it would be. Therefore, although the dragon will could detect everything within a radius of 500 kilometers, the dragon will could not detect anything within a radius of 500 kilometers. However, if he wanted to use dragon telekinesis to kill an enemy, it would be best if he was within 100 kilometers. At this moment, in a circle with a radius of half a kilometer. Under the heavy pressure of Mo Shi's dragon will. Bang 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 bang. The ghouls exploded one after another. Bang 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 bang. The ghouls exploded, and the ghost fire disappeared. In just 10 seconds, more than 300 ghouls exploded in a circular area with a radius of half a kilometer. Mo Shi also obtained more than 300 killing points. As he continued to fly forward, ghouls continued to explode. In his mind, killing points continued to enter his account. At the same time, Mo Shi already knew why so many people had left the ghost fire swamp and never returned. It turned out that there was corpse poison in the air of the ghost fire swamp. Generally speaking, corpse poison was like the zombie virus. It would not spread through the air. Only when one was scratched or bitten by the ghouls would they be infected. However, the corpse poison in the air here was extremely dense. If one accidentally inhaled it into their body, they would definitely be infected. It seemed that many people had died under this corpse poison. However, if that was all, it was still unable to kill the Grand Desolate Master. The Grand Desolate Master who had come to investigate also never returned. Obviously, there were other reasons for this. Mo Shi's flying speed was not fast. He maintained an altitude of 100 meters. While using his dragon will to explore a radius of 500 kilometers, he also killed the ghouls within a radius of 100 kilometers. After flying for about half an hour, 2 ghouls jumped out in front of him. These 2 ghouls were already equivalent to level 5 Desolate Hunters, 1 level higher than the other ghouls. However, this was of no help at all. Mo Shi first plundered their memories before killing them. While flipping through their memories, he continued to fly forward. From the memories of these 2 ghouls, Mo Shi did not know what was strange about this swamp. However, from their memories, Mo Shi could vaguely feel a mysterious and powerful force that was dominating the entire ghost fire swamp. He could even feel that there was a pair of eyes that had been watching the ghost fire swamp in the dark night. If it was in the past, Mo Shi might have left the ghost fire swamp. Safety was the most important thing. But now, with the adventurous nature of the bloodthirsty demon dragon in his body, coupled with the natural pride of the dragon race, this made him have no intention of leaving at all. You plan to dominate me? If you have the ability, bring it on. Continuing to fly forward, Mo Shi was still killing the ghouls here. Naturally, some ghouls saw Mo Shi and wanted to shoot Mo Shi down with arrows. However, before they could raise their arrows, they were already killed by Mo Shi. After flying for most of the night, he had killed about 20,000 ghouls. Mo Shi was also a little tired. With a thought, he hid in his own miniature world. When Happy and Emma saw Mo Shi arrive, they were very happy and asked about his well-being. Mo Shi said, "I'm a little tired. I want to rest." Happy and Emma quickly made a bed for Mo Shi. Mo Shi lay on the bed and heard the cries of dragons and phoenixes coming from the sky from time to time. Such sounds were a little disturbing to his sleep. With a thought, the sound of rain hitting banana leaves. Soon, a dark cloud appeared in the sky. At the same time, banana leaves quickly grew out of the empty space next to his bedroom. Soon, the banana leaf reached his window. Patter, patter. Raindrops fell. A fragrant smell of earth came from outside the window. Listening to the sound of rain hitting banana leaves and smelling the fresh smell of earth. In a few minutes, Mo Shi's voice rang out. Happy and Emma heard the snoring coming from the bedroom and could not help but look at each other and laugh. Emma's child could not help but laugh when he heard Mo Shi's voice. His snoring is really loud. Chapter 468. Mo Shi fell asleep amidst the sound of rain pattering on banana leaves. He woke up amidst the rainbow that stretched across the sky. Such a world, such a life, was really addictive. However, Mo Shi knew that life in this world was not real life after all. It was like playing a game. No matter how awesome one was in the game world, one still had to starve and be scolded in the real world. No matter how much this miniature world evolved, Mo Shi still had to constantly improve his strength in the real world. Although his sea dragon clone's strength was now considered a top-tier expert on the Flaming Origin continent. But this was not enough. Who knew if there were any hidden experts on the Flaming Origin continent? What Mo Shi wanted was to be able to crush the entire continent. Therefore, he had to raise his strength to the Grand Desolate Master level. At that time, the sea dragon clone's strength would exceed the Grand Desolate Master level. Only then could it be called invincible on the entire continent. Thinking of this, Mo Shi once again bid farewell to Happy Emma and left the miniature world. When he came to the ghost fire swamp again, it was morning. It was equivalent to Mo Shi sleeping for more than 30 hours. The ghouls were not afraid of sunlight. Therefore, they would still be active during the day. Mo Shi's draconic will probed. There were still many ghouls within a 500-kilometer radius. As for how terrifying the legendary ghost fire swamp was, he did not discover it. He continued to go deeper and deeper, at the same time using his spiritual will to kill these ghouls. Just like this, Mo continued to use his draconic will to kill the ghouls. When his draconic will was about to be exhausted, he returned to the miniature world to rest. After his draconic will recovered, he came out again to kill the ghouls. Now that Mo's draconic will had reached level 10, its recovery speed was very fast. Basically, it would be able to recover to its peak within 48 hours. It seemed that no matter how one looked at it, Mo would be able to easily cross the Ghostfire Swamp. However, on this day, when Mo arrived at the center of the Ghostfire Swamp, he finally discovered something. The center of the Ghostfire Swamp, in terms of terrain, vegetation, and other aspects, seemed to be no different from the rest of the Ghostfire Swamp. But when Mo arrived, he realized that something was wrong. The direction of the wind here was uncertain. Sometimes it blew from the southeast, sometimes it blew from the northwest. From time to time, there would be a tornado. Sometimes, the wind even blew from the sky to the ground. Mo had experienced so much, so he could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. However, he had never seen wind blowing from the sky to the ground. Mo couldn't help but raise his guard. 5 minutes later, something strange happened. He saw an inverted cone-shaped tornado coming from afar. It was approaching at a high speed. The tornado swept up the turf and muddy water in the swamp. Wherever the tornado passed, it left a 100-meter wide and 1-meter deep gully in the swamp. Moments later, the tornado headed straight for Mo. Mo was already prepared to dodge. However, when the tornado was about 10 meters away from Mo, it suddenly split into 4. It formed 4 tornadoes. The 4 tornadoes instantly spread out and surrounded Mo from 4 directions. Mo flapped his wings and passed through the side of the tornado at an extremely fast speed. However, just as he passed through, more than 10 tentacles stretched out from the tornado and grabbed at Mo's feet. Fortunately, Mo used his dragon sense to envelop the surroundings. When those tentacles reached over, Mo had already dodged. The 4 tornadoes failed to encircle Mo, so they merged back into one. Then they flew high into the sky. Moments later from the sky, a huge tornado-shaped cover was formed and covered Mo. At this moment, at the top of the tornado where it met the sky, it formed the shadow of a giant. This giant shadow seemed to be the shadow of a corpse ghost. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, its face sinister. It seemed to want to eat Mo alive. Especially the aura it released, it actually far exceeded that of a Grand Desolate Master. It gave people the feeling that it was an existence above the Grand Desolate Master. Moreover, this thing's body was still growing. At first, it was only 500 meters tall, but soon, it reached 1,000 meters. 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 50,000 meters. It gave people the feeling that it had reached the level of connecting the sky and the earth. Even the most powerful Grand Desolate Master among humans would lose the thought of resisting in front of such a huge corpse ghost, because it was too powerful. However, at this moment, Mo's mind moved. He directly used teleportation. He instantly left the range of the giant corpse ghost. The corpse ghost seemed to be slightly surprised. It let out a beast-like voice. Teleportation? Then, it mocked. Do you think you're invincible just because you know a little triangular cat trick? Ignorant human. Ha 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 ha. As it spoke, it stretched out its hands. I'll let you see what the power of a god is. Just as he finished speaking, he saw the swamp in the distance start to surge rapidly. Just like a wave, it was rolling towards them. At first, it was only 10 meters high. Gradually, the wave also continued to rise. 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. It was still rising. What was even more terrifying was that there were actually 4 such waves. They swept towards Mo from 4 directions. In the sky, the corpse ghost that was far larger than a mountain enveloped Mo. If it was an ordinary person, even a Grand Desolate Master, seeing this seemingly supernatural phenomenon, they would be scared to the point of being at a loss. In the flaming beginning continent, no matter how strong a Grand Desolate Master was, he could split open the ground and collapse mountains. It wouldn't cause too much shock. Because for a Grand Desolate Master, this was a routine operation. And now, This giant corpse ghost actually caused a 100-meter-tall wave of mud to surge in the swamp. This ability had far exceeded the ability of humans. It was normal for people to be afraid in front of such an ability. But Mo sure didn't. This time, not only did he not escape, but he also flew towards the giant corpse ghost in the sky. At the same time, a long spear had already condensed in his right hand. The long spear was completely blood-red. It was the demon-devouring dragon spear condensed from the blood of the corpse ghosts that Mo sure had killed earlier. The dragon spear was 5 meters long. Mo sure held the long spear in his hand and directly pierced towards the giant palm of the giant corpse ghost in the sky. The corpse ghost once again let out a human laugh. A mere ant wants to shake a tree? Ridiculous. As it spoke, a large cluster of dark clouds suddenly floated over in the sky, blocking the light of the sun. In just a few seconds, the clear sky suddenly became covered with dark clouds. Then, heavy rain poured down. Chapter 469. The originally cloudless sky was suddenly covered in dark clouds. Following that, heavy rain poured down. From the appearance of the dark clouds to the heavy rain. In just a short 5 seconds. This completely violated the laws of nature. At the same time, in the heavy rain, thousands of mud monkeys jumped out from the 4 mud waterfalls around them. These mud monkeys were not solid, but condensed from mud. Tens of thousands of mud monkeys swarmed towards Mo sure, covering the sky and covering the earth. At this time, even a grand desolate master would probably have a mental breakdown. This was because no matter how strong a spirit reader was, they would not be able to condense mud into other shapes, not to mention that these mud monkeys could attack. The most terrifying thing was that the aura of each mud monkey had reached the Grand Desolate Master realm. Tens of thousands of Grand Desolate Masters attacked one person. Even if this person was a super expert on the continent, a level 5 Grand Desolate Master. At this moment, he would probably be scared. However, Mo sure did not pay attention to those mud monkeys at all. He held the demon-devouring dragon spear tightly in his hand and continued to stab towards the right palm of the giant corpse ghost in the sky. At this moment, the tens of thousands of mud monkeys had already surrounded Mo sure. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards Mo sure. However, what was surprising was that Mo sure did not pay attention to them at all. When these mud monkeys bit Mo sure, they could not even bite through Mo sure's skin. At the same time, Mo sure's demon-devouring dragon spear had already clashed with the giant palm of the giant corpse ghost. That giant palm was instantly sent flying under the demon-devouring dragon spear. Mo sure and his spear pierced through the giant palm that covered a radius of more than 10 kilometers. They continued to go deeper and pierced into the giant corpse ghost's forearm. Then, they went forward until they reached its shoulder. Finally they reached its chest. Puff! A muffled sound of flesh being pierced could be heard. It turned out that there was another corpse ghost hidden in the giant corpse ghost's chest. Mo sure's demon-devouring dragon spear had pierced into the corpse ghost's body. The corpse ghost immediately let out a miserable scream and its body instantly scattered as it fled. Blood was gushing out of its chest. At the same time, the body of the giant ghoul instantly turned into a large amount of mud and fell from the sky. As for the tens of thousands of mud monkeys in the surroundings, they also turned into mud and fell from the sky. The 4 huge waves formed by the muddy water also fell from the sky. The dense dark clouds in the sky also quickly receded. Mo sure had just plundered the ghoul's memories and knew that it was the ghoul's doing. This ghoul had mutated and gained the wind attribute. Through constant practice it could perfectly control the wind. For example, using wind to blow mud and water to condense huge waves, condense thousands of monkeys, or condense giants that reached the sky and touched the earth. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky were also caused by it controlling the wind. All of this seemed very frightening. Especially after it raised the aura of these mud monkeys to the Grand Desolate Master level, it became even more frightening. Anyone who saw it would feel fear. On top of that, the ghoul was constantly using language to give psychological hints to the enemy. Therefore, when many humans saw this, they would feel that this was the power of a god. In front of such power, they didn't even have the chance to escape. This was also the reason why the Grand Desolate Master who escaped said that there really was a god in this world. As for the other Grand Desolate Masters who died here, it was because they had been here for too long and had inhaled too much corpse poison. They thought that they were strong and weren't afraid of inhaling such a small amount of corpse poison. But they didn't know that as time passed, it was like boiling a frog in warm water. In the end, very few Grand Desolate Masters were able to return. As for Mo Shi, he had a physique that was immune to poison, so he naturally wasn't afraid of this corpse poison. Moreover, when he used the Devil Dragon's Eye to observe just now, he could easily see the true face of all of this. He knew that the Wind Attribute Ghoul was behind all of this. Therefore, the moment he attacked, he went straight for the Wind Attribute Ghoul. The Wind Attribute Ghoul was heavily injured, so everything it controlled naturally no longer existed. However, what made Mo Shi a little regretful was that when his devil-devouring dragon spear was about to pierce the ghoul's head, it still used a wind attribute technique to cause the tip of his spear to deviate from its target. Only then did it injure its shoulder. However, this was the devil-devouring dragon spear. Even if it only injured its shoulder, it would still be enough to make it suffer. However, in reality, this wind attribute ghoul recovered very quickly. After the wind attribute ghoul escaped with its injuries, Mo Shi continued to use his dragon sense to kill these ghouls. However, after a short 10 minutes, the wind attribute ghoul appeared again. This time, it didn't pretend to be a ghost. Instead, it suddenly appeared behind Mo Shi and clawed at Mo Shi's back with its sharp claws. Mo Shi dodged and dodged the ghoul. When he turned around to attack it, it quickly flew into the distance. Its speed was so fast that it surpassed any infected creature Mo Shi had ever seen. Moreover, when Mo Shi tried to attack it with his dragon sense, he found that it seemed to be invisible. His dragon sense couldn't attack it at all. Mo Shi frowned slightly. This guy was a little difficult to deal with. Although in terms of level, it was only equivalent to a level 7 Desolate Hunter, it was still a little troublesome to kill it. However, Mo Shi's purpose here was to collect kill points. As for this guy, it didn't matter if he killed it or not, as long as it didn't bother him anymore. However, this guy clearly had no intention of giving up. It knew that it couldn't defeat Mo Shi head-on, so it often turned invisible in the wind and slowly approached Mo Shi. Then, it would suddenly launch a fatal blow. Mo Shi had his dragon sense enveloping the surroundings and was always vigilant, so he wasn't afraid of this. However, this was really annoying. It continuously harassed Mo Shi for half an hour. Even Mo Shi was slightly angry. This guy still didn't hold back. Although it couldn't kill Mo Shi couldn't kill it either. And it could constantly provoke Mo Shi's bottom line through words. Mo Shi had no choice but to use his mind. With a teleport, he moved hundreds of kilometers away. However, just as he appeared, the wind attribute ghoul also appeared. Mo Shi teleported again, but the wind attribute ghoul followed him and teleported over again. It looked at Mo Shi with a despicable expression and chuckled. "It's useless. Don't struggle. This is my world, and I am the god here. No matter where you run, I can catch up. So, you'd better surrender." Mo Shi's heart was filled with anger. However, after hearing his words, his head moved slightly and he asked coldly, "No matter where I go, you can catch up?" The wind attribute ghoul looked smug. It crossed its arms in front of its chest. "Of course." Mo Shi asked again, "What if I go to another world?" Chapter 470. The wind attribute ghoul faced Mo Shi with a mocking smile and looked at Mo Shi. It spoke in a human voice. "You are very strong. You are the strongest human I have ever seen. Although your aura is only that of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master, you are much stronger than those Grand Desolate Masters. But so what? My wind attribute is formless, and ever-changing. You can't kill me, nor can you avoid me. I can't beat you, but I will annoy you to death. You can teleport? Sorry, I can too. Furthermore, I can track your aura. Wherever you teleport to, I'll teleport there too. If you go to the sky, I can go to the sky too. If you go to the ground, I can go to the ground too. Hee, so, today either you die or you go crazy. Ha ha ha. The ghoul's laughter sounded ethereal, sometimes far and sometimes close. If an ordinary person saw the ghoul's godlike ability and heard its words, even if they didn't collapse, they wouldn't be far from it. However, Mo Shi smiled faintly. He asked calmly, "What if I go to another world?" Hearing this, the ghoul laughed. "I will go to that world with you." Then he continued to tease. "I have been to the other world you mentioned. There was once a grand desolate master of the blood world who was frightened by me and teleported back to the blood world. I followed his aura and instantly followed him to the blood world. In the end, I killed the grand desolate master in front of the tens of thousands of vampires in the blood world. What could they do? They could only watch. Ha 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 ha. At this point, the mutated ghoul's laughter was filled with pride. The blood world was a place that even the people of the flaming continent didn't want to mention. If the creatures there rushed to the flaming continent, they could cause a devastating blow to the flaming continent. And this ghoul could go to the blood world for a stroll and even kill the grand desolate master of the blood world. This was indeed enough to make him proud. However, Mo sure didn't care about this at this moment. He smiled faintly and said, "Then follow me." As he spoke, his mind moved. He disappeared from where he stood in an instant. The next moment, he appeared in the miniature world. Almost at the same time, the ghoul followed Mo sure into the miniature world. Furthermore, the instant it appeared, it had already condensed a wind blade. The wind blade was completely invisible as it flew towards Mo sure from a distance of 50 meters. In fact, Corpse Ghost had been waiting for this moment. After many battles, his combat experience was extremely rich. He knew that after a person completed a teleportation, there would be a 1-second pause period known as the recombination period. Wormhole teleportation used advanced technology to break down the human body into molecular form. Then, through the wormhole, they would be teleported to the coordinates and reassembled. In the process of reorganization, one's thoughts were somewhat chaotic. This was the best time to attack. Therefore, as long as he could confirm someone's aura, he would follow that person and teleport to the coordinates. Although his success rate wasn't 100%, at least he had never failed. However, this time, when the wind blade was less than a centimeter away from Mo sure's eyes, it suddenly stopped without warning. Seeing this, the wind attribute ghoul couldn't help but be shocked. This kid actually reacted. What was going on? Soon, the surprise in his heart turned into horror. Because the wind blade didn't just stop. Instead, it turned around and quickly attacked him. It wasn't just this wind blade. Around him, in the spherical space with a radius of 50 meters, there were actually tens of thousands of wind blades. They all flew towards him. How was this possible? Could this kid also be a mutated wind attribute desolate hunter? It seemed that he had underestimated this kid. However, so what if he underestimated him? This kid obviously didn't know much about the wind attribute. The wind attribute was invisible and formless. Tens of thousands of wind blades wanted to kill a wind attribute powerhouse? Thinking of this, he teased, "Let me tell you what it means to be formless and formless." As he spoke, he didn't dodge and directly stretched out his hands. He opened his arms and welcomed the tens of thousands of wind blades. Then, the first wind blade instantly pierced his chest. The smile on the ghoul's face instantly froze. Why didn't his formless and formless technique work? However, he didn't have time to understand. Poo. Hundreds and thousands of wind blades pierced into his body. He was almost directly dismembered by the wind blades. No, it couldn't be called dismembered anymore. It was called mincing. He didn't understand. He didn't understand why his formless and formless technique, which had always been successful, had failed at this moment. Before he died, he raised his head to look at Mo sure, who was not far away, in confusion. He saw that Mo sure's face had an indifferent expression that he had expected it. He said 8 words, "Welcome to my world." In the next second, the ghoul's consciousness was directly minced into meat paste. As for his consciousness, it disappeared as well. Following Mo sure to the miniature world was the biggest mistake he had made in his life. In this world, Mo sure was the creator. Mo sure was God. He was an omniscient and omnipotent supreme existence. No matter how strong you were in the outside world, you could destroy the universe with a single punch. But in this world, Mo sure could destroy you with a single thought. Mo sure had once wondered whether he could put Happy, Emma, and her son into micro-world, and whether he could put his enemies into micro-world as well. But the answer given by the system was frowny face. Before the miniature world evolves to a strong enough level, you can't put the enemy in. Unless the enemy is willing. Coincidentally, this guy was willing to do it today. On the grass, Happy and Emma weren't surprised to see Mo Sure kill a strange guy. They just prepared the bedding for Mo Sure. They knew that it was time for Mo Sure to rest. At this moment, they killed the Wind Attribute Ghoul. Mo Sure said in his mind, "System, special event sign in." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, killed Wind Attribute Ghoul. Sign in reward, 1 ghoul servant. In the next moment, a ghoul appeared in front of Mo Sure. This ghoul looked exactly the same as the ghoul he had just killed. The difference was that this ghoul didn't seem to have any thoughts, just like a dead person. However, the system prompted frowny face ghoul servant has no consciousness and will only act according to its master's orders. It is 100% loyal to its master. At the same time, the system also pointed out that this ghoul servant was a Wind Attribute Ghoul. It had all the skills of the Wind Attribute Ghoul from before. Chapter 471. The Ghoul Servant was the same as the ghoul from before. In terms of cultivation level, it was equivalent to a level 5 Desolate Hunter. It didn't look too strong, but its skills were indeed very intimidating. And it was 100% loyal to Mo Sure. Therefore, it should be of great use in certain situations. Next, Mo Sure rested in the miniature world for another 2 days. Then he continued to hunt ghouls in the Ghoul Fire Swamp. It took them another 5 days to kill all the ghouls in the unforgiving evil Ghost Fire Swamp. At this time, his kill points had reached more than 360,000. However, Mo Sure was still not satisfied with this. It had been half a month, but he had only gotten more than 100,000 kill points. It was a little slow. So he didn't waste any time in other places. Instead, he went straight to the Yama forest with the most mutated desolate beasts. Of course, the mutated desolate beasts and ghouls along the way didn't escape his claws. When he reached the Yama forest, his kill points had increased by more than 20,000. It had reached 380,000. The Yama forest was the largest forest on the Infernal Python Star. Its area occupied almost 1/10 of the entire Infernal Python Star. In this forest, there were hundreds of thousands of mutated desolate beasts. And in this forest, there were more than 300 kinds of snakes. Most of these snakes were giant pythons. And without exception, all of them were highly poisonous. Therefore, the Yama forest could be considered a veritable forest of giant pythons. For humans, this was a forbidden area. Even if a Grand Desolate Master came, he would only dare to stay here for a short while. Of course, Grand Desolate Masters rarely came to this planet. At this time, Mo Sure came to the sky above the forest. His draconic psyche spread out 500 kilometers. After a moment of investigation, even he couldn't help but sigh. This Yama forest was definitely the richest and most dangerous forest he had ever seen. If one didn't have strong telekinesis, coming here was almost equivalent to suicide. The species here were rich and there were many of them. He moved his mind. Bang 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 bang. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all the mutated desolate beasts exploded. Bang 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 bang. In just 10 seconds, all the mutated desolate beasts within a radius of 100 kilometers exploded into a bloody mist. Therefore, in these 10 seconds, within a radius of more than 100 kilometers, all the trees, ground, rocks, and rivers were dyed red. A thick layer of blood mist enveloped the area of more than 100 kilometers. At the same time, in Mo Sure's mind, the kill points were also increasing rapidly. With just this attack, his kill points had increased by more than 5,000. His speed was a lot faster than when he was at the Will-O-Wisp Swamp. He continued to fly forward as his dragon consciousness continued to bombard these mutated desolate beasts. Bang 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 bang. Behind him, he left behind a trail of blood mist that was 200 kilometers wide. As for the infected creatures in the surroundings, they would rush over once they smelled the stench of blood. Therefore, Mo Sure did not have to waste any more effort to travel. Even if they stayed where they were, there would be mutated wild beasts and infected creatures constantly swarming towards them. Just like that, in just a minute Mo Sure had gained more than 60,000 kill points. In just 1 hour, he had gained more than 300,000 kill points. 300,000 per hour was still acceptable. Just like that, in less than 3 hours, Mo Sure's kill points had reached 1 million. The system's notification sounded in his mind frowny face kill points. 1 million. Can be upgraded. Upgrade now? Seeing this, Mo Shi felt a little regretful. If he had known that it was so easy to gain kill points here, he would not have wasted so many days in the will-o-wisp swamp. Mo Shi nodded. Upgrade. The system's voice sounded again. This upgrade will take 12 hours. Please find a safe location as soon as possible. Mo Shi was a little dissatisfied. In the past, it took 5 minutes to upgrade. Why did it take 20 hours this time? The system's voice sounded quickly. Because the host has consumed a large amount of dragon consciousness, it will have a huge negative impact on the brain. Therefore, you must rest as soon as possible to recover your dragon consciousness. Mo Shi nodded. Indeed, his dragon consciousness was almost depleted and he needed to rest. With a thought, he returned to the miniature world. Consuming a large amount of dragon consciousness was very tiring. Mo Shi kept using dragon consciousness to kill thousands of mutated desolate beasts was even more tiring. He slept for 2 days. When he woke up 2 days later, Mo Shi was still a little groggy. Rubbing his sleepy eyes, it took him a full minute to figure out where he was. He yawned and washed his face. Then he suddenly remembered that before he went to sleep, he was upgrading. Thinking of this, he suddenly quivered and completely woke up. In his mind, he pounced on his attributes. Name, Mo Shi. Level 6 Desolate Hunter. Level 10 Long Nian Shi. Mo Shi could not help but let out a faint smile. He had finally upgraded. At the same time, the kill points in his mind had a new change. Kill points, 0/10 million. If he wanted to upgrade again, he would need 10 million kill points. But in this Yama forest, it was not difficult to collect kill points. He ate the food that Emma brought over and rested for more than half an hour. Then he left the miniature world and returned to the Yama forest. In the 2 days he rested, the smell of blood from before had attracted a large number of mutated desolate beasts. With Mo Shi's current dragon consciousness, he could only kill the mutated desolate beasts that were level 6 and below. But the lower the level, the more mutated desolate beasts there were. So there was no need for him to pursue killing higher-level mutated desolate beasts. Bang 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 bang. 10 seconds. Just one hit. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all the mutated desolate beasts that were level 6 and below were killed by him. In his mind, his kill points instantly skyrocketed. Kill points, 73,321 million. Previously, one hit could increase his kill points by more than 5,000. Now, one hit was more than 7,000. Then, Mo Shi slowly flew forward. As he flew, he kept killing these mutated desolate beasts. In an hour, his kill points had reached 500,000. In this day, excluding the 2 hours of rest, he had gained more than 5 million kill points. Then, in order to recover his dragon consciousness, he hid in the miniature world and slept again. On the 3rd day, he gained almost another 5 million kill points. In his mind, the system's prompt sounded again. Kill points have reached 10 million. You can upgrade. Do you want to upgrade now? Mo Shi nodded. Of course. The system's voice sounded again. This upgrade will take 24 hours. Please find a safe place to upgrade as soon as possible. And so, Mo Shi returned to the miniature world again. This time, he slept for another 2 days. After 2 days, he woke up. He looked at the stats in his mind again. Name, Mo Shi. Level 7 Desolate Hunter. Level 10 Long Nian Shi. Chapter 472. Only 9 days had passed since Mo Shi came to the Yama forest. In 9 days, he had risen 2 levels. He had already reached the level of a level 7 Desolate Hunter. If the other Desolate Hunters knew about this speed, wouldn't they die of jealousy? He went to the personal reservoir to check on the sea dragon clone. Sure enough, the sea dragon clone had also risen 2 levels. It had reached the level of a level 7 Desolate Beast. It was equivalent to a level 7 Grand Desolate Master. And with the strength of the sea dragon clone, it could easily crush a level 8 Grand Desolate Master. If Mo Shi returned to the Flaming Land now, with the sea dragon clone, he should be able to stand at the top of the continent. Even if there were some unknown old monsters on the Flaming Land, they should not have reached level 9. According to the information Mo Shi had, in the entire Flaming Land, There had not been a level 9 Grand Desolate Master in 1,000 years. In 10,000 years, there had only been 3 level 9 Grand Desolate Masters. And the lifespan of a Grand Desolate Master was only 1,000 years. Therefore, those level 9 Grand Desolate Masters had already died of old age. Of course, there was no guarantee that a level 8 Grand Desolate Master could quickly become a level 10 Grand Desolate Master after taking some medicine. Therefore, Mo Shi wanted to continue to improve his strength. He wanted to become a Grand Desolate Master as soon as possible. And the Sea Dragon clone would become a Super Desolate Beast as soon as possible. In that case, he would be able to stand at the top of the continent. Thinking of this, Mo Shi had a simple meal and continued to kill. Although it was called killing, it was actually just a one-sided suppression. Bang 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 bang. The desolate beasts exploded again. The forest was dyed red again. The blood mist rose again. In Mo Shi's mind, the kill points soared again. This time, he needed 100 million kill points to increase it again. Killing for 1 day and resting for 1 day, on average, it was 2.5 million kill points per day. At this rate, he could level up in 40 days. However, Mo Shi felt that it was still too slow. According to his logic, if it took 40 days to level up, why would he waste so much effort to come here? So this time, he did not kill for 1 day and rest for 1 day. Instead, he used up all of his draconic senses. After a day and a half, he returned to the miniature world. After resting for 12 hours in the miniature world, he returned to the jungle. He continued to use up all of his draconic senses before returning to the miniature world to rest. Just like that, the cycle continued. The speed at which his kill points increased was a third faster than before. According to this calculation, it would take less than 10 days, at most 30 days for him to advance again. What Mo Shi didn't realize was that the total amount of dragon intent kept increasing as he continued to exhaust it. On this day, Mo Shi was flying forward while killing the mutated desolate beasts below. About 200 kilometers away from him, on a mountain top, Li Yundong was in a daze. The group of 5 was looking down at the valley below. One of them said, "Isn't this the Snake Valley? Why can't I see a single snake?" Another person said, "According to the map, this is indeed the Snake Valley." On the other hand, a spiritual psyche master beside him had a solemn expression as he slowly said, "Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist." When the rest of the people saw the spiritual psyche master's expression, their expressions became somewhat dignified. The spiritual psyche master could detect things that they could not see with their naked eyes. Since the spiritual psyche master said so, it seemed that there must be many snake-type desolate beasts in the Snake Valley. The leader of the strong men said, "No matter how difficult it is, we must welcome back the Phoenix Master this time." When the rest of the people heard him say this, their eyes became fanatical. "Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Welcome back the Phoenix Master." The leader of the strong men continued, "We are only the first batch. Our main mission is to scout the way. There are 5 more batches of people coming later. When the Phoenix Master comes out, our Phoenix clan will dominate the entire continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Dominate the continent." These people were like fanatical believers. When the words Phoenix Master were mentioned, they were all energized. At this moment, the spiritual psyche master frowned and said, "There is someone 200 kilometers away." The rest of the people immediately quieted down. The leader asked, "Who is it? Is it coming for us?" The spiritual psyche master shook his head and said, "It doesn't look like it. However, he is very strong. Just by using his telekinesis, he can kill mutated wild beasts below level 6. At this moment, he is constantly killing these wild beasts." When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled. "Is it a spiritual psyche master?" the leader asked. The spiritual psyche master nodded. "Yes." The leader asked again, "How many people are there?" "Just him." When the rest of the people heard this, they were a little surprised. The Yama forest was extremely dangerous. Even people like them would only dare to enter it if they were in a group. Now, this spiritual psyche master had entered the forest alone. Was he not courting death? The spiritual psyche master did not explain how terrifying the scene he saw was. This guy was like a killing god. Everywhere he went, he was dyed red. A bloody mist rose. In all honesty, he could also use his telekinesis to kill mutated wild beasts. However, he could only kill level 1 mutated wild beasts. Moreover, he could only kill mutated wild beasts within a range of 5 kilometers. Compared to this guy who could kill any mutated wild beast below level 6 within a range of 100 kilometers, his telekinesis was not enough. His telekinesis is very strong. The spiritual psyche master said solemnly, much stronger than mine. When the rest of the people heard this, their hearts trembled. Someone asked, will he affect our welcome back to the Phoenix Master? The spiritual psyche master replied, probably not. He seems to be only killing these wild beasts. Why would he kill these wild beasts for no reason? What good would it do him? The spiritual psyche master replied, I don't know, but he must have a purpose. The leader thought for a moment and said, as long as it doesn't affect our welcome back to the Phoenix Master, he can do whatever he wants. The rest of the people nodded. The leader said, send this information to the other teams, and then we will go to the Snake Valley to explore. Soon, they explained the situation to the other teams. The other teams also reached a consensus. As long as this spiritual psyche master did not affect their business, they would not provoke him for the time being. Once they returned to the Phoenix Master would be able to kill this guy with a single thought. Naturally, they would not have to worry about anything. However, these people did not know that they were already within the range of Mo Shi's detection. Mo Shi even knew the purpose of their trip by plundering their memories. At this time, Mo Shi was killing these mutated wild beasts while flipping through the memories of these people. As he flipped through, he sighed. So there is such a thing. Chapter 473. As Mo Shi killed these desolate beasts, he flipped through these people's memories. From these people's memories, he learned that there was a woman in the dragon clan of the Flaming Land 700 years ago. This person was extremely talented and became a grand desolate master at the age of 30. She was once seen as the only successor of the dragon clan. During one of her training, she discovered that there was an extremely powerful bird type of desolate beast on the Flaming Land. After she killed it, she obtained the blood of that bird type of desolate beast. After that blood merged with the blood in her body, her strength increased greatly. After that, she fell in love with a man from another clan. According to the rules of the dragon clan, regardless of gender, a dragon clan member was not allowed to marry another clan member. This woman refused to accept and wanted to elope with that man. In the end, when the dragon clan found out, they fought. This woman was so powerful that she defeated all 5 of the dragon clan's experts. At this time, she was in high spirits and called herself the Phoenix Master. She also gained a group of followers. However, when she was fighting, the man she liked was killed by the dragon clan. In a rage, the Phoenix Master started to massacre the dragon clan. However, at this time, the dragon clan's patriarch accidentally activated the dragon blood in the Phoenix Master's body. Perhaps it was because of the dragon blood and the bird blood in her body. As long as the dragon clan's patriarch willed it, the blood in her body would boil, and even her meridians and flesh would be cooked. Only then was the Phoenix Master subdued. The dragon clan's patriarch killed the Phoenix Master in front of all the dragon clan disciples. However, in reality, he did not really kill the Phoenix Master. Because the Phoenix Master was the dragon clan's patriarch's biological daughter. As the dragon clan's patriarch, his daughter had committed such a crime. If he did not kill her, it would appease the public's anger. However, if he killed her, how could he do it to his own daughter? In the end, he only made his daughter faint from the pain. Then, he secretly brought his daughter to the Python Star of Hell. Because his daughter was severely injured at that time, only the Python Emperor of the Python Star of Hell could save her with thousands of viper bile. The Python Emperor's condition was for the Phoenix Master to marry him. The Dragon Clan's patriarch had no choice but to agree to this condition. In the end, the Phoenix Master married the Python Emperor. And the Python Emperor cured the Phoenix Master. But because of the Dragon Clan's existence, the Phoenix Master could not reveal her identity. That was why he had been hiding on the Hell Python Star for so many years. Now that the Dragon Clan had been annihilated, the Python Emperor had died of old age. However, before he died of old age, the Python Emperor sealed the Phoenix Master in his grave, saying that she would accompany him in death. Now, these followers of the Phoenix Master were heading to the Snake Valley to enter the Python Emperor's tomb. Open the seal and save the Phoenix Master. Understanding this, Mo sure didn't pay any attention to them. Who cares if you're the Python Emperor or the Phoenix Master? Even the Dragon Clan was destroyed by me, so what do you think you are? In the next 3 days, he saw another 4 groups of people enter the Snake Valley. Originally, Mo sure didn't intend to pay any attention to them. However, not long after they entered the Snake Valley, all the surrounding mutated desolate beasts began to head towards the Snake Valley. Within Mo sure's probing range, almost half of the area was gone. This made Mo sure slightly unhappy. He looked in the direction of the Snake Valley from afar. No matter what you do, as long as it doesn't affect me collecting killing points, then we will mind our own business. But now that you have interfered with my development, I'm sorry. Thinking of this, Mo sure flew towards the sky above the Snake Valley. When he arrived, he used his dragon consciousness to investigate below. He saw that there were many snake-type desolate beasts in the Snake Valley below. There were some that were as small as 5 to 6 meters long, and some that were as large as 1,000 meters. As long as one dared to go down the Snake Valley, one would encounter a venomous snake almost every 10 meters. At this time, the desolate beasts that came from outside the Snake Valley were fighting with these snakes. Mo sure roughly understood some things by plundering the memories of these snakes and desolate beasts. It turned out that the Phoenix Master was very good to these snakes when she was alive. Therefore, these snakes had always wanted to welcome the Phoenix Master back. However, the Phoenix Master was suppressed by the seal, and these snakes didn't have the ability to break the seal. Coincidentally, these humans appeared at this time. They could break the seal, so these snakes naturally supported them. However, these mutated desolate beasts in the forest couldn't take it anymore. This was because they knew that once the Phoenix Master returned, with her ability, she would lead the entire Snake Clan and dominate the entire Hell Python Star. At that time, the Snake Clan would be the dominant clan, and all the other clans could only submit to them. Therefore, these desolate beasts came to attack the Snake Clan and destroy them to break the seal. At this time, both sides were in a bloody battle. The Snake Valley was said to be a valley. In fact, it was a huge crack that was more than 100 kilometers wide and more than 5,000 kilometers long. If one looked down from a bird's eye view, they would find that this crack was like a huge wound on the Hell Python Star. It was also like a big mouth that was opening, as if it was going to swallow the universe. At this time, in this huge valley, an intense battle was breaking out. At the southern entrance of the valley, thousands of mutated desolate beasts poured in. They flew in the sky, ran on the ground, and swam in the water. They surged over like a mountain flood. It was as if they were crushing dry weeds. As they ran, the ground shook. At the entrance of the valley, smoke and dust rose. Smoke and dust filled the sky. And from the other side, a large number of snake clans surged over. They formed a snake tide. Just one look was enough to make one's scalp tingle. These snake clans were of different sizes, long and short, and they were colorful. They crawled over the rocks, the river, and the trees. It was as if a huge colorful carpet was being pulled across the Snake Valley at high speed. The distance between both sides was quickly closing. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 200 meters. When Mo sure saw this, how could he let it go? Based on the current situation, if they were to meet, there would definitely be heavy casualties. How could this be? Whether it was the Snake Clan or the other desolate beasts, they were all mine. Only I can kill them. Thinking of this, his dragon consciousness moved. Bang 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 bang. Whether it was the Snake Clan or the other mutated creatures, they all exploded. In an instant, 1/3 of the Snake Valley was covered in blood and a bloody mist rose. The beast tide started from the front and quickly turned blood red. The snake tide started from the front and also quickly turned blood red. In this Snake Valley, the Snake Clan's density was already very high. Now with the addition of this beast tide, the density was even higher. Therefore, in a short 10 seconds, Mo sure obtained 150,000 kill points from this first wave of killing. Mo sure couldn't help but feel refreshed. Another 10 seconds. Bang 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 bang. A bloody mist rose together with the smoke and dust. As for his massacre, he continued. Soon, the kill points in his mind rose crazily again. 300,000, 500, 000, 900, 000, 1,000,000. In a short minute, his kill points broke through to 1 million. And it was still rising crazily. Chapter 474. Inside Mo Shi's mind, his kill points were skyrocketing. Amidst the endless slaughter, this was the only thing he was paying attention to. What he didn't notice was the subtle changes that were happening to his body. His eyes were darker than before. So dark that they were like an abyss. As he looked around, an invisible pressure could be faintly emitted from his eyes. This was only the difference he showed in his human form. If he was in his bloodthirsty demon dragon form, this difference would be even more obvious. However, Mo Shi didn't know about all of this. Right now, he was only blindly slaughtering. Of course, this state didn't mean that he was about to go berserk. The bloodthirsty demon dragon needed to kill in order to grow. From the moment he became the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he would never go berserk again. The kill points in Mo Shi's mind were still skyrocketing. It broke through 1 million in 1 minute. 10 million in 10 minutes. In just half an hour, it had reached 30 million. If this continued, it would take at most 1.5 hours for him to level up again. However, as the saying goes, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. After more than an hour, Mo Shi's kill points broke through 70 million. At this time, the entire valley was already flowing with blood. The cliffs, trees, flowers, and grass were all dyed red with blood. The rivers in the valley had all turned blood red. Above the valley, a bloody mist filled the sky. Even the scorching noon sun couldn't disperse this bloody mist. Whether it was the snake clan or the wild beasts, none of them dared to take another step forward. However, the snake clan and the wild beasts both realized one thing. That was, the dead wild beasts were all level 6 and below. If they were level 6, they would be safe and sound. As such, the wild beasts sent out more than 100,000 wild beasts that were level 6 and below. The snake clan also sent out more than 100,000 giant pythons that were level 6 and above to attack Mo Shi. With Mo Shi's current dragon will, if concentrated, he could easily kill any wild beast that was level 9 and below. However, if they were spread out, they would only be able to blast apart mutated wild beasts that were grade 6 and below. Now that over 200,000 mutant desolate beasts were charging towards Mo Shi naturally would not waste his time to blast them one by one. Therefore, with a thought, he teleported to the back of the beast tide. The dragons will once again spread out and blasted towards the beast tide. Bang 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 bang. The explosions continued. In his mind, his kill points were still soaring. These desolate beasts were too simple-minded. They did not know that Mo Shi had the ability to teleport. With a single teleport, he could appear behind them from the front, catching them off guard. Bang 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 bang. Mo Shi continued to bombard the beast horde. What was even more surprising was that the giant python, which originally had outstanding self-healing ability, showed no signs of self-healing after being cut in half by Mo Shi's claw. It was writhing and struggling on the ground in pain. A moment later, it died one after another. More than 200 kilometers away, 5 people were looking over here. Among these 5 people, one was a spiritual psychic. The 5 of them were sent to guard. At this time, the others were preparing to break the seal and could not be disturbed at all. So they sent these 5 people to guard this place. Of course, they were mainly targeting Mo Shi. If Mo Shi came over, they would have to do their best to stop Mo Shi. At this time, one of the level 10 desolate hunters asked the spiritual psychic, "How is it?" However, he found that the spiritual psychic didn't seem to hear this question at all. Moreover, there was an expression of disbelief on his face. This expression made the others very puzzled. "Speak." The level 10 desolate hunter patted the spiritual psychic's shoulder. Only then did the spiritual psychic come back to his senses. Then, he subconsciously swallowed his saliva and said, A claw that broke the river." He said these 4 words. When the others heard this, they were still puzzled. "What do you mean?" The spiritual psychic replied, "He cut the river in half with a claw." When these words came out, the others were shocked. "What? This river is 100 meters wide and cut it in half with a claw? Is he a grand desolate master? Even a grand desolate master can't cut it in half with a claw. This kid, We underestimated him too much. Chapter 475. Mo Shi's claw broke the river, which made those people's faces turn cold. In the past, there had been people who could break the river with a saber or a sword. But they were all Grand Desolate Masters, and very powerful Grand Desolate Masters at that. Now, this guy was clearly just a desolate hunter, but he could actually break the river with a claw. It seemed that they had underestimated this guy. Quickly send a message to the boss and tell them to hurry up. If that guy kills us, we won't be able to hold on. When the boss breaks the seal and rescues the Phoenix Master, no matter how strong that guy is, he will only be an ant in front of the Phoenix Master. So, these people began to send messages to their boss in a hurry. At the same time, more than 300 kilometers away from them, more than 20 people were busy in front of a mountain peak at the end of the Snake Valley. This mountain peak was the mausoleum of the Snake Emperor. Their Phoenix Master was buried here with the Snake Emperor. Moreover, the Snake Emperor had set up a formation here that ordinary people couldn't break. It was even more impossible for the Phoenix Master to escape from inside. These people had been busy here for more than 2 days, but they still couldn't break the formation. At this time, the leader received a message from the front. After reading it, he cursed, "Damn it!" The others asked, "What's wrong, boss?" The leader turned his multifunctional watch over. When everyone saw the message, they all frowned. "I told you, this guy is not easy to deal with. What do we do now?" Boss, we are the only followers of the Phoenix Master. If we fail this time, or even die in the hands of that guy, then, no one will ever save the Phoenix Master in the future. Hearing this, the leader shook his head. In short, if he doesn't attack, everything will be fine. If he really attacks, we can only fight with our lives on the line. Fight with our lives on the line. Fight with our lives on the line. For the Phoenix Master. The rest of the people spoke one after another. The leader encouraged everyone again. However, we have found some clues now. When we break the seal and welcome the Phoenix Master, that guy won't be a threat at all. Hearing this, everyone's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Mo Shi was currently in the middle of a battle, so he naturally did not pay attention to these things. After breaking the river with one claw, he slashed out with another claw. Schwa! Dozens of giant pythons were directly cut in half. Swish! Swish! With a wave of his right claw, the giant pythons were sliced apart. In front of Mo Shi, more than 100 giant pythons, which were equivalent to rank 10 desolate hunters, could not even last half a minute. When the rest of the giant pythons saw this, they no longer dared to attack Mo Shi. As for those people who were 200 kilometers away, they all gasped when they saw this scene. Good heavens, this is equivalent to one person fighting against 100 hunters. This guy is too abnormal. Could it be a Grand Desolate Master? That's impossible. The aura he released during the battle was clearly that of a level 7 Desolate Hunter. How can a level 7 Desolate Hunter be so terrifying? I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. After Mo Shi killed the giant pythons, he planned to continue killing the snakes and beasts. However, at this moment, from the mountain peak not far away, a shocking roar could be heard. Roar! The next moment, rumble, the mountain peak collapsed with a loud bang. Huge rocks tens of meters high rolled down from the mountain peak with a loud bang. They smashed into the blood river at the foot of the mountain, splashing up hundreds of meters high. Rubble fell down one after another. Those mutated desolate beasts were all crushed. And those giant pythons were also crushed in half. For a moment, screams, and wails resounded throughout the entire valley. Among the flying rocks, a figure suddenly jumped out. This figure was actually more than 2,000 meters long. It was actually a giant python with a length of 2,000 meters. This giant python was nearly 100 meters thick. On its body, there were scales the size of houses. Under the sunlight, they shone with a blood-red light. Its pair of eyes shone with a cold light. When it opened its mouth, a pair of sharp teeth were like a pair of silver-white arrows. At the same time as it opened its mouth, a dark green liquid was sprayed at Mo Shi at an extremely fast speed. Mo Shi's dragon consciousness had already enveloped this giant python. His figure flashed as he dodged the dark green liquid. At the same time, he was also slightly shocked. This giant python was actually a strong mutated desolate beast. It was equivalent to a desolate master. Originally, on this planet, a strong mutated desolate beast that was equivalent to a desolate master would not appear. But now, this strong mutated desolate beast had appeared in front of Mo Shi just like that. However, although Mo Shi was a little surprised, he did not feel that it was unexpected. After all, it was not like he had never seen creatures in the hunting ground whose level exceeded the hunting ground setting. He dodged the giant python's venom attack. Unexpectedly, this giant python's body flipped forward. From its neck, a withered head actually grew out. Two-headed giant python. 2 heads, 2 huge mouths, each shot out 2 streams of venom. Mo Shi's figure flashed again and dodged the 2 streams of venom. These 2 streams of venom were dodged by Mo Shi and landed on the cliff behind him. The cliff was instantly corroded, forming 2 huge pits with a diameter of more than 50 meters. It could be seen how terrifying this giant python's venom was. Mo Shi was also secretly shocked. If he was touched by the venom, he would be melted in the end. That giant python's 2 consecutive attacks did not hit Mo Shi. Its body flipped forward again. Another head flipped up from its neck. 3 heads, 3 huge mouths, and 3 streams of venom were sprayed out. However, to Mo Shi, this was simply child's play. This giant python had 3 heads, but he did not expect its intelligence to be so high. This kind of attack was simply a joke. Soon, that giant python saw that it could not hit Mo Shi. It raised its head from under its neck again. 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads, 8 heads, 9 heads. In the end, it actually grew 9 heads. Each head was more than 50 meters wide. And when these heads opened the blood-red folds of flesh at the back of their heads, it was even more terrifying. However, even if Mo Shi had 9 heads, it was still quite easy for him to hide. He kept dodging the attacks of these heads. At the same time, his sharp claws slashed down. Swish! An invisible force slashed down at the giant python below. Clang, clang, clang. There was the sound of metal clashing. A crack appeared on the huge scales on the surface of the giant python's body. But that was all. It actually failed to cut its body into 2. This surprised Mo Shi. One had to know that his claw could break a river. Now, it couldn't even completely cut open the scales of this giant python. This guy's defense was really not to be underestimated. Chapter 476. Mo Shi's demonic dragon claw had always been invincible in the past. No matter how hard something was, under the invisible force of the sharp claws, it was only a matter of a single claw. And now, this giant python's scales could actually withstand the attack of his sharp claws. It was really surprising. Mo Shi didn't know that this giant python had once received the favor of the Phoenix Master and had the blood of the dragon race flowing in its body. In addition, its snake scales had strong defensive power, so it could withstand Mo Shi's sharp claws. This 9-headed giant python was also very shocked when it saw Mo Shi break the river with 1 claw. It was afraid that it couldn't withstand Mo Shi's claw. At this moment, seeing that Mo Shi's claw only left a small crack on its body, it was immediately relieved. The 9 heads opened their mouths one after another. From the 9 huge mouths, hoarse hisses came out. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At the same time, the 9 huge mouths not only spat out venom. At the same time, it also spat out dark green energy towards Mo Shi. This dark green energy not only had powerful destructive power, but also had intense toxicity and corrosiveness. If anyone was sprayed, they would be like melted chocolate in minutes. Seeing this, Mo Shi's figure flashed and instantly dodged the energy and venom. At the same time, he had already arrived at an altitude of 10,000 meters. The next moment, his body quickly expanded. His clothes were torn apart. Scales appeared on his body. On his back, a pair of tattered wings grew. A long tail quickly grew out as well. In just 5 seconds, he had transformed into a giant dragon. However, at this moment, he had changed compared to before. On his back, behind the previous pair of wings, there was another pair of slightly smaller wings. 4-winged demonic dragon. In the legends of the Flaming Continent, giant dragons basically had 2 wings. 4-winged giant dragons rarely appeared. And giant dragons with 4 wings were all mutated dragons that had reached the peak of their combat strength. As a bloodthirsty demonic dragon, the more Mo Shi killed, the more likely it was for him to mutate. In the past few days, he had slaughtered at least 80 million mutated desolate beasts, snakes and ghouls, if not 100 million. Such a frenzied slaughter finally caused his demonic dragon body to mutate. He had become a 4-winged demonic dragon. A 4-winged demonic dragon's combat power far exceeded that of a giant dragon of the same level. To give a simple example, a Tier 1 4-winged mystic dragon could easily kill a Tier 4 colossal dragon that was 3 tiers above it. In addition to Mo Shi's various skills and powerful dragon will. Now, he could easily kill other giant dragons that were 5 levels above him. Of course, this was referring to powerful giant dragons. If he was compared to humans or mutated desolate beasts, after transforming into a 4-winged demonic dragon, he would be able to kill a rank 7 Grand Desolate Master without any pressure. Roar! Mo Shi couldn't help but let loose an excited roar as he sensed the surging energy within his body. Its 170-meter-long body seemed somewhat small compared to the 2,000-meter-long python on the ground. However, on the ground, the 9-headed python that was more than 2,000 meters long couldn't help but tremble under this dragon roar. It wasn't just this 9-headed python. All the other mutated desolate beasts and pythons around couldn't help but tremble. After all, this was a real colossal dragon. Long Wei was vast and mighty, and no one dared to disobey. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers away. When the 5 of them heard the dragon roar, their bodies trembled. They couldn't help but prostrate on the ground. Fortunately, they were far enough away, so they could barely hold on. One of them was shocked and pale as he asked, "What's going on?" Another asked, "What's that sound?" It seems to be a powerful desolate beast. But no matter how strong a desolate beast is, it's impossible for us to have the urge to worship it from 200 kilometers away. At this moment, the spirit psyche master next to them only felt that his entire body was soft. He couldn't help but fall to the ground with a plop. Those people were shocked and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" The spirit psyche master made a gulping sound in his throat and replied, It's a colossal dragon, a real colossal dragon, a 4-winged colossal dragon." After saying these words, he seemed to have used up all his strength and couldn't say another word. The others looked at each other in dismay. A real colossal dragon? And a 4-winged one? What a joke. The colossal dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. And even if a colossal dragon appeared, it should have appeared in the flaming origin continent. It shouldn't have appeared in this mere hunting ground. This was like telling me that a colossal dragon appeared in your pigsty. But they all knew that this spirit psyche master rarely joked. Not to mention at this time. They realized that the situation wasn't right and asked the spirit psyche master, "Then, should we retreat now or?" The spirit psyche master paused for a moment before speaking. "No, the Phoenix Master is at a critical moment. We can't retreat. I only hope that colossal dragon isn't coming for us." Hearing this, the others nodded in agreement. At the same time at the scene, after Mo Shi transformed into a 4-winged colossal dragon, he circled in the air. Using the wind, he swooped down. Black ice dragon breath. A white dragon breath spewed out. A thick layer of ice immediately formed on the ground. Whether it was rocks, grass, rivers, wild beasts, or giant pythons, they all turned into ice sculptures. The 9-headed giant python also turned into ice sculptures from its tail to its head. Its 9 heads still wanted to make a final struggle before death. But it was already too late. Crack, crack, crack. In the end, its head was completely sealed in ice. This kind of ice seal wasn't simply sealing it inside. Instead, it invaded its skin, invaded its body, invaded its every cell, and invaded its bone marrow. From the outside to the inside, from top to bottom, it was crystal clear and cold. For a time, everything within a radius of 10 kilometers was frozen. Mo Shi's dragons will swept across. Whoosh! All the ice sculptures were shattered by his dragon's will. The 9-headed giant python's body also shattered into blood-colored ice cubes on the ground. Previously, the 9-headed giant python could still fight a few rounds with Mo Shi. But after Mo Shi transformed into a 4-winged demonic dragon, the 9-headed giant python was instantly killed by him in a single move. This couldn't even be considered a warm-up for him. Now that he had transformed into a demonic dragon, he naturally wouldn't let these wild beasts and giant pythons go so easily. In the sky, he circled again, turned around, and flew down. Whether it was the giant python or the mutated wild beasts, they didn't even dare to escape under Mo Shi's long way. Mo Shi opened his mouth and spat out a red flame dragon breath. Boom! The flames instantly spread dozens of kilometers. Within these dozens of kilometers, there was a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, all the creatures were screaming, wailing, and rolling. At the same time, in Mo Shi's mind, the kill points were rising crazily again. Chapter 477. After Mo Shi revealed his demonic dragon true form, his battle could only be described with one word: unstoppable. All the mutated wild beasts and giant pythons didn't even dare to fart in front of him. They could only watch him descend from the sky over and over again. Every time he swooped down, he would take tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of lives. Slaughter. This was a true massacre. This was the true bloodthirsty demonic dragon. Amidst such slaughter, his evolution points were also skyrocketing. When he had killed more than half of the beast-tide and half of the giant pythons, in his mind, the system's notifications sounded again. Slaughter points have reached 100 million. You can level up. Do you wish to level up now? Mo Shi didn't choose to level up immediately this time. There were probably millions of wild beasts and giant pythons below. He would kill them all first. So Mo Shi continued to move back and forth between the sky and the ground. In the end, he killed all the wild beasts and giant pythons. At this time in his mind, his slaughter points had reached 110 million. At this time, his draconic sense swept across and found that there were almost no creatures left on the ground. Only then did he transform back into his human form. He changed his clothes and returned to the microspace. In his mind it said, "You can level up now." The system's voice sounded frowny-faced. "This level up will take 48 hours. Mo Shi nodded silently. At this time, Emma and Happy had already prepared several of Mo Shi's favorite dishes. After Mo Shi ate, he let out a long yawn. Then he hid on the soft bed. Not long after, he started to snort. At the same time, in the Snake Valley outside, those people originally thought that they wouldn't be able to escape this time. Unexpectedly, the giant dragon didn't come over. Instead, after killing almost all the snakes and wild beasts, it transformed back into its human form and suddenly disappeared. Only then did they breathe a sigh of relief. "Quickly report to boss," the psychic said. Because they were too shocked and scared just now, they completely forgot to report to boss. Soon, their boss received the news. Then his expression suddenly changed. A giant dragon? And a four-winged one? When the others heard boss's words, they were also stunned. What kind of joke is this? This joke is a little too much. Maybe it's just a dragon-like creature. The giant dragons had long been extinct. How could they appear here? Even if there really is a dragon, it should be on the flaming origin continent. That's right. Up until now, all of the giant dragon fossils we've discovered have been found on the flame continent. We didn't find anything related to dragons in any hunting grounds. However, the leader of the group did not smile. He knew that since these people would send such a message, they must have confirmed it. He pondered for a moment and replied, "Continue to investigate. At the same time, pay attention to hiding. Don't act rashly." Then he said to the rest of the people around him, "We have to break the seal as soon as possible. Then leave this damned place." When the rest of the people heard their boss say so, they didn't dare to question him anymore. They all nodded and started to get busy again. They busied themselves for another day and night. Finally, at a certain moment, they poured a large amount of energy into the formation. The formation finally dissipated completely. At the same time, the imperial mausoleum where the Snake Emperor was buried also collapsed. The mountain, which was thousands of meters high, collapsed. Rocks flew everywhere and rolled down the entire valley. At the same time, the rocks completely covered the entrance of the imperial mausoleum. These people spent another half a day cleaning up the rocks at the entrance of the cave. Fortunately, they were all level 10 desolate hunters. The leader was even a level 1 grand desolate master. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult for them to clean up. After cleaning up the rocks at the entrance of the cave, they entered the tomb. In the tomb, they found the mummified corpse of a giant python that was thousands of meters long. The upper body of the mummified corpse was that of a human, and the lower body of a giant python. This should be the Snake Emperor from back then. This caused everyone to rejoice in their hearts. It seemed that the legends of the past were true. Since they had found the Snake Emperor, the Phoenix Master must be in this tomb. They spent another half a day looking for the Phoenix Master in this huge tomb. However, during this half a day, they searched almost every inch of this huge tomb, but they didn't find the Phoenix Master. Their two spiritual psyche masters searched almost every inch of this sure, but they still couldn't find the Phoenix Master. Not to mention the Phoenix Master, they couldn't even find anything related to the Phoenix Master. This made everyone feel dizzy. They had been preparing for hundreds of years. Before their seniors died, they had told them that they must open the Imperial Mausoleum and save the Phoenix Master. Now, after hundreds of years, the efforts of several generations, they had finally waited for the day when the Dragon Clan was destroyed. After going through countless difficulties and dangers, they finally opened the Imperial Mausoleum. However, reality gave them a heavy blow. The Phoenix Master was actually not inside. They couldn't believe this fact. Next, they searched the Imperial Mausoleum and its surroundings for 2 days, but they still couldn't find the Phoenix Master. Although they were unwilling, they could only leave. When they left, these people were a little dazed. They had worked hard for several generations, but in the end, they found that the goal they were fighting for didn't exist at all. This kind of disappointment, this feeling of being deceived, made all of them feel an indescribable disappointment and anger in their hearts. It was also at this time that Mo Sure returned to the Hell Python Star after sleeping for more than a day and resting in the miniature world. At this time, he was promoted to a level 8 Desolate Hunter. The Sea Dragon clone had also been promoted to a level 8 Strong Mutated Desolate Beast. In terms of realm, it was equivalent to a level 8 Grand Desolate Master. And the strength of the Sea Dragon clone could challenge people 2 levels higher. Therefore, the Sea Dragon clone was equivalent to a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. In the entire Flaming Origin continent, it could be said to be an invincible existence. Therefore, the sense of urgency in Mo Sure's heart was no longer as strong as before. In the past, in order to not be bullied and killed, he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Now, the Sea Dragon clone was already the pinnacle existence on the continent. Then, he could take his time and slowly improve his strength. It had been a long time since he had this feeling, and Mo Sure still enjoyed it very much. After returning to the Hell Python Star, Mo Sure's dragon consciousness swept across. He found that within the range of his detection, the entire Snake Valley was deathly silent. One had to know that in this Snake Valley, there were snakes everywhere. Almost every few steps, he would step on one. Now, there wasn't even a snake. There were only some broken snake corpses on the ground and some broken limbs of desolate beasts. The blood on the stones, grass and trees had already formed a thick layer of black and red scabs. Chapter 478. Mo Sure left the miniature world and returned to the Snake Valley. There was dead silence in the Snake Valley. It looked like a completely different world compared to the snake that was full of vitality earlier. Mo Sure shook his head and looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points: 130027331000000000. More than 13 million kill points. The next upgrade would require a terrifying 1 billion. Mo Sure estimated that he should be able to kill more than half of the mutated desolate beasts on this planet. Of course, if he really did kill more than half of them, the 20th hunting island would definitely find out and interfere. After all, killing more than half of them would severely damage the ecology of this planet. The 20th hunting island would not sit by and do nothing. However, Mo Sure did not care. He had paid 30 million for a year. Within this year, he could kill as much as he wanted. In theory, even if he completely destroyed this planet, there would be no problems. Hence, he continued to kill these mutated desolate beasts in the Yama forest. However, many of the desolate beasts in the Yama forest had gone to the Snake Valley. Now, the number of desolate beasts left was much smaller. The speed at which Mo Sure collected kill points had obviously decreased. After more than a month, he finally collected 100 million evolution points. At this time, He had already killed 2/3 of the entire Yama forest. In the Yama forest, the number of evolution points he obtained was decreasing. Hence, he could only leave the Yama forest and go to the 10,000 corpse forest. The 10,000 corpse forest was a place where ghouls gathered. There were many ghouls there. Moreover, they would often capture humans and kill them, hanging them on trees and letting them rot quickly. Hence, it was called the 10,000 corpse forest. Everyone who was lucky enough to see the 10,000 corpse forest said that it was the most terrifying place they had ever seen. They did not want to go to the 10,000 corpse forest even if they were beaten to death. At this time, Mo Shi was heading towards the 10,000 corpse forest. The 10,000 corpse forest was a huge forest. In this forest, there were no mountains or basins. There was not even a small hill. The terrain was very flat. The area of several million square kilometers was so flat that it was as if someone had deliberately leveled it and planted trees. In this forest, half of the creatures were ghouls. The remaining half were other types of desolate beasts. These ghouls could go without food for 10 days to half a month. Therefore, they would not easily eat these desolate beasts. Instead, they would think of ways to find humans. After killing them, they would hang them on trees and let them rot. According to the information, there were hundreds of millions of ghouls here. Basically, their strength was equivalent to that of a desolate hunter. If he killed them all, he would be able to obtain hundreds of millions of kill points. Thus, Mo Shi quickly flew towards the center of the myriad corpse forest. Looking down from where he was flying. Within the 10,000 corpse forest, there were indeed many humanoid creatures hanging on the trees. Some had just been hung up and hadn't rotted yet. Some were half-rotten. Some had completely rotted away. Under the sunlight, it emitted an unpleasant smell. However, not all of them were human corpses like in the legends. It could be seen that the human corpses were only a small portion. There were even more desolate beast corpses. However, most of them were humanoid corpses. It seemed that there was a huge discrepancy between the legend and the truth. After all, there were hundreds of millions of ghouls here. If they all went to eat humans, then there would only be a few billion humans on the entire Hell Python star. Wouldn't they be eaten up very quickly? Following that, Mo Shi began his massacre in the myriad corpse forest. As the ghouls weren't gathered like the snakes in the Snake Ghost, they were more scattered. Therefore, the speed at which he collected kill points was much slower. Mo Shi spent a total of 5 days or so before he killed all the ghouls and mutated desolate beasts in the myriad corpse forest. It was also on this day that he received a piece of good news. When he killed the last ghoul, he discovered that his dragon's will had unknowingly become dozens of times stronger than before. At this moment, a system notification sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Congratulations to the host for leveling up to level 1 Long Yen Shi. Mo Shi was stunned. This was the first time he had leveled up unknowingly. Above the Long Yen Shi was the Long Yen Shi. And the Long Yen Shi was much stronger than the Long Yen Shi. Mo Shi spread out his dragon's will. It instantly covered a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Within 1,000 kilometers, nothing could escape his dragon's will. At the same time, after leveling up to the Long Yen Shi, he had an additional skill related to Dragon's Will. Dragon's Will Seal. The formless Dragon's Will formed a huge formless seal within a radius of 50 kilometers. It descended from the sky. Anything below would be crushed into pieces. And the terrifying thing about this Dragon's Will seal was that it had 2 forms. One was an area of effect attack form. In its normal form, one seal could kill any creature below the Grand Desolate Master level. The other was a single target attack form. The single target attack form could be used to attack a Grand Desolate Master. Not only could it attack a Grand Desolate Master, but it could also absorb energy from the outside world to attack the target. It could even absorb the energy released by the target to kill the target. This was quite terrifying. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the Dragon's Will seal. Of course, in its single target attack form, it had a time limit. At most, it could only exist for a minute. Otherwise, if it kept absorbing, wouldn't it be invincible? It seemed that the 30 million spent this time was really worth it. Not only had he leveled up by 3 levels, but his dragon's body had also mutated into a 4-winged bloodthirsty demonic dragon. His dragon's will had leveled up to the Long Yen Shi. If possible, he would rather spend another 300 billion to increase his strength. However, the target planet was already very limited in terms of the increase in his strength. At most, he would stay here for a few more months. After collecting 1 billion kill points, it was time to leave. Therefore, in the next 2 months, Mo Shi spent his time in killing. His kill points were also slowly increasing. On this day, he had been on the Hell Python star for 90 days. It was also on this day that the system's notifications sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Congratulations to the host for leveling up to a level 9 Desolate Master. Mo Shi was a little confused. He looked at his kill points. It was only 300 million kill points, far from the 1 billion needed for leveling up. Why did he suddenly level up? The system seemed to know Mo Shi's thoughts and replied in his mind. Frowny face. The Dragon Palace Desolate Master refining platform has successfully refined 10 Grand Desolate Masters. The host's level has increased by 1. Hearing this, Mo Shi finally understood what was going on. This could be improved. The system's voice sounded again. Frowny face. Next time, 100 Grand Desolate Masters need to be refined, and the host will be able to level up again. Mo Shi shook his head. Sigh. This system couldn't be praised. To refine 100 Grand Desolate Masters, it would take 1,000 days. More than 2 years, only 1 level up. It was a little useless. The system's voice sounded. Frowny face. After the Dragon Palace leveled up, the scale of the Desolate Master refining platform can be expanded. Hearing this, Mo Shi nodded in satisfaction. Seems like this system is quite humane. Chapter 479. Mo Shi had been on the Hell Python star for 3 months. Since the Dragon Palace refining platform had already refined 10 Grand Desolate Masters, Mo Shi's level had also increased by 1. He had become a level 9 Desolate Hunter. Looking at his mind, he needed 10 billion kill points to advance to level 10. And his current kill points were only a little more than 300 million. It seemed that it was impossible to advance to level 10 on the Hell Python star. He had to go to a higher level hunting ground. Thinking of this, Mo Shi left the wilderness and returned to base number 1. When he returned to base number 1, he frowned slightly. But it was only a slight frown. Then, his expression was normal as he walked towards the base. Previously, Anwei had already ordered the employees in the base to be on standby and ready to serve Mo Shi once they saw him return. A beautiful employee immediately stepped forward and asked, "What's the matter?" "Sir, it's my pleasure to serve you. If you need anything, feel free to ask me. I'll try my best to satisfy you." Hearing this, Mo Shi looked at the beautiful employee from head to toe. He asked with a smile, "Any request?" The beautiful employee's face immediately flushed red. But she still nodded and said softly, "Yes." She had been working here for a long time and had met many people. How could she not know what Mo Shi meant? But Sister Wei had already said that she had to satisfy any request of this gentleman. She naturally did not dare to neglect. And since Sister Wei had said so, it could be seen that this gentleman's status must be very high. At the very least, he should be on equal footing with the island master. If she was lucky enough to get close to this gentleman, then she wouldn't have to work hard for the rest of her life. But it was obvious that Mo Shi was just joking. Although this beautiful employee was beautiful, she could be said to be 1 in 100. But in terms of beauty, she couldn't compare to Happy. In terms of figure, she couldn't compare to Emma. In terms of femininity, she couldn't compare to Anwei. Mo Shi naturally couldn't really have any request for her. Mo Shi returned to the room that Sister Wei had arranged for him and took a shower first. Then he came to the leisure area. He ordered a cup of good tea and slowly sipped it. He admired the scenery outside the window. Speaking of which, this leisure area really made people feel peaceful. He sipped his tea and enjoyed the beautiful scenery outside the window. It had been a long time since Mo Shi enjoyed himself like this. This was what life was like. While he was enjoying all this, Sister Wei had unknowingly walked up to him. He also ordered a cup of tea. She picked up the teacup and gently walked to Mo Shi's side and sat down. "What do you think of this place?" Mo Shi nodded. "Yes, very good." Sister Wei stroked her hair with a chuckle and asked, "What do you think of me?" Mo Shi nodded. "Yes, very good." Sister Wei pursed her lips and said, "You don't seem sincere." Mo Shi laughed and said, "Did I get sick from praising you?" Sister Wei took a sip of tea and said to Mo Shi, "Have you ever thought about settling down?" Mo Shi asked, "What do you mean?" Sister Wei looked at the huge lake outside the window and replied, "I'm old and want to live a quiet life. Are you willing to go with Sister Wei?" This sudden question surprised Mo Shi a little. He involuntarily glanced at the men not far away. Sister Wei was the dream of many men here. And she was the leader of this base. Now she took the initiative to say this to him, which was really beyond Mo Shi's expectation. "What? You don't want to?" Sister Wei looked into Mo Shi's eyes and asked with a smile. Mo Shi shook his head with a smile. "Sister Wei, don't make enemies for me, okay?" Sister Wei also glanced at the other men around her and chuckled. "I'm just joking with you. You've been fighting in the wilderness these days and your nerves are too tense. It's good for you to relax." Mo Shi nodded. "Well, thank you for your concern. But even if it was a joke, it still aroused the jealousy of the men around her. Sister Wei's every frown and smile was too attractive. Even such a joke made them unable to control themselves. If it were them, they would have agreed on the spot. Then Sister Wei asked again, "Are you going to leave this time?" Mo Shi nodded. "Yes." Sister Wei said, "You spent 30 million for a year, and now you want to leave after only 2 months? Isn't it too much of a loss?" Mo Shi said, "Take the extra money as a tip." "Oh, you're so generous." Mo Shi shrugged. "I've always been like this." The two chatted for a while. When the sun set, Mo Shi returned to his residence. At about 3 o'clock at night, suddenly the doorbell rang. Mo Shi was very unhappy to be woken up by the doorbell. He got up and went to the door. Outside the door was a man. Mo Shi frowned and stared at the man without saying anything. He had seen this man during the day, and he had a deep impression of him. Because every time Sister Wei appeared, he would appear with her. His eyes always showed his deep love for Sister Wei. Was it because he heard his joke with Sister Wei during the day, so he was burning with jealousy and wanted to take revenge on him? Thinking of this, Mo Shi planned to plunder his memory and check it out. But at this moment, a dagger suddenly appeared in the man's right hand. The dagger was imbued with energy and stabbed directly at Mo Shi's abdomen. Mo Shi had been prepared, so naturally he would not be stabbed. His figure flashed slightly and dodged the dagger. Because the man used too much force, he directly fell into the room. He suddenly turned back and stabbed at Mo Shi again. This time, Mo Shi did not dodge. Instead, he raised his hand and kicked at the man's body. Bang! This kick was extremely heavy. The kick landed heavily on the man's abdomen. The man immediately flew out. However, halfway through the flight, the man's lower body quickly changed. Almost in an instant, his legs turned into a snake tail. It wrapped around the pillar next to him. Then with a jerk, his body flew toward Mo Shi again. At the same time, the dagger in his hand also flashed with cold light and stabbed straight at Mo Shi's chest. Mo Shi was slightly surprised. This man was from the snake clan? Was it because he had killed too many snakes, so he was here to take revenge? But there was no time to think. Mo Shi's mind flickered, and a chain instantly flew out. This chain was completely black, but it grew with the wind. At first, it was only 2 meters long. But the moment it flew out, it became more than 10 meters long. It directly wrapped around the man's body. Whoosh! With a sound, the man with a human head and a snake body was directly tied up tightly. That person used all the strength he had in his life to struggle. But no matter how he struggled, he could not break free. He naturally did not know that this was the dragon binding rope. It could even bind a giant dragon, let alone a mere snake. Chapter 480. Mo Shi used the dragon binding rope to tie up the person with the human head and snake body. That person continued to struggle, using all the strength in his body to break free. But this was easier said than done. This was the dragon binding rope. It can even bind a dragon, let alone a small snake like you. That person's thoughts changed at this moment and he begged Mo Shi for mercy. "Don't kill me, I can tell you." Before he finished speaking, Mo Shi's sharp claws had already pierced through his head. Then one point. His head was like a watermelon, divided into 6 pieces. That person did not understand why this human was so ruthless until he died. He did not hesitate to attack. Of course, he did not know that Mo Shi had the memory plundering skill. He had already plundered his memories. It was also at this moment that a beautiful figure suddenly arrived. This person was none other than An Wei. She saw that Mo Shi was still standing and did not seem to be injured. Only then did she relax. She asked, "Mr. Mo, are you all right?" Mo Shi shook his head. "I'm fine." An Wei frowned and said, "It was my negligence that allowed the enemy to sneak in. This person is from the Snake Clan. After hundreds of years of cultivation, he turned into a human. Mr. Mo, do you have any grudges with the Snake Clan?" Mo Shi smiled faintly and said, "It's nothing. I just slaughtered the Snake Valley." An Wei was stunned. Slaughtered the Snake Valley? Mo. Mr. Mo, are you joking? Although she had never been to the Snake Valley, but after being here for so many years, she knew how terrifying the Snake Valley was. It could be said to be one of the most terrifying places in the entire Hell Python Star. Even a grand desolate master like her did not dare to go to that place. Now, this Mr. Mo actually said that he had slaughtered the Snake Valley. How could this not shock her? And he said it so casually. He called slaughtering the Snake Valley nothing. Wasn't this too exaggerated? After regaining her senses, An Wei said, "No wonder. These Snake Clan will take revenge for the smallest grievance. You slaughtered the entire Snake Valley, so they will definitely come looking for trouble with you. So I suggest you leave the Hell Python Star as soon as possible. Otherwise..." Mo Shi nodded. "And there's no use for me to stay here now. Make arrangements for me as soon as possible. I'll return to the Hell Python Star tomorrow morning." "All right." While the two were talking, hiss, a hissing sound came from the other side of the wall. Both of them turned their heads at the same time. He saw a snake head the size of a human head poking out from the wall. Then, the second, the third, the fourth. Soon, snake heads of various sizes appeared on the wall. The next moment, boom! The wall came crashing down. Amidst the smoke and dust, hundreds and thousands of snakes swarmed in from the outside. It was as if a colorful carpet had been pulled in from the outside. Several security guards were patrolling when they suddenly heard the roar. He hurried over. However, when they saw this scene, they immediately felt their scalps go numb. A chill ran down his spine. Even the scariest scene they had seen in their lives was not as terrifying as this. Several security guards hurriedly fled into the distance. At the same time, they blew the siren. Beep beep beep, beep beep beep, beep beep beep, in the base's surveillance room. The security guard was leaning on the chair with his feet on the console, snoring continuously. When he heard the siren, he was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. When he looked up at the surveillance camera, he suddenly felt his scalp go numb. F***CK. In panic, he hurriedly pressed the alarm in the entire base. Woo, woo, woo. The sound of an ambush alarm immediately spread throughout the base. Most of the people in the base were in a deep sleep. When they heard the alarm, they hurriedly got up and looked out the window. When they saw the situation outside the window, their hair immediately stood on end. This tide of snakes was coming from all directions. They would bite anyone they saw. Moreover, these snakes were highly poisonous. Once one was bitten to the ground, one would die within minutes. Even if the doors and windows were closed and they hid in the room, those giant pythons that were hundreds of meters long could destroy the house in minutes. The people who flew into the air to escape were smashed down by the giant pythons who were already prepared with their tails. For a time, the entire base was filled with cries and screams. Mo Shi looked at this and did not make a move to save these people. When he first came, these people were not very friendly to him. Moreover, he had something else to do. When An Wei saw this scene, she could not help but turn pale. Oh no, the base's defense system has been destroyed. Then she pulled Mo Shi and said, "Mr. Mo, let's go to the teleportation hall immediately. I'll send you back to the flaming land first." Mo Shi allowed her to pull him along as he quickly ran towards her. Soon, the two arrived at the teleportation hall's entrance. However, at this moment, hundreds of snakes behind them were not far away. They did not have time to activate the teleportation device. An Wei gritted her teeth and said to Mo Shi, "Mr. Mo, hurry up and leave. I'll help you buy time." As she spoke, she had already condensed an energy weapon on her right arm. She waved her hand casually. Whoosh! A beam of energy swept across in front of her. As many as 50 snakes of various sizes were directly blown up by her energy. She slashed out a few more times and as many as 200 snakes of various sizes were blown up by her. Then she turned her head and said to Mo Shi, "Mr. Mo, hurry up and leave." Mo Shi nodded. "Thank you." As he spoke, he did not hesitate and turned to walk toward the teleportation hall. However, at this moment, Anwei's energy weapon suddenly aimed at Mo Shi's back. Whoosh! A beam of energy instantly attacked Mo Shi's back. At the same time, Mo Shi's figure instantly disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already behind Anwei. Moreover, there was a trace of a mysterious smile at the corner of his mouth as he looked at Anwei. Anwei's expression changed slightly. "You saw through it?" Mo Shi nodded. Anwei frowned and asked, "How did you see through it?" Mo Shi did not answer directly and only smiled faintly. "You should think about how you were exposed." Anwei's face no longer had that charming smile of a woman. Instead, there was a trace of coldness. In her mind, she thought about where exactly she had overlooked. After thinking for a moment, she secretly shook her head. She felt that everything was done very carefully and there was no flaw in the fake path. How did Mo Shi see through it? Of course, she did not know that Mo Shi had the ability to plunder memories. When he had returned to the base, he had felt that something was wrong. He had already plundered many people's memories. In the end, he realized that something was wrong because of Anwei. Anwei already knew that Mo Shi had slaughtered the Snake Valley. Therefore, she had already made up her mind to kill Mo Shi. Moreover, according to the memories that Mo Shi had plundered, she had an even bigger secret. She was the Phoenix Master. Chapter 481. Mo Shi learned a huge secret from Anwei's memories. Anwei was the Phoenix Master. It turned out that Anwei had already broken the seal of the formation from the inside more than 50 years ago and escaped. However, the Dragon Clan was still around at that time, so she didn't make it public. Instead, she found a way to sneak into the human race. Firstly, she was beautiful, and secondly, she was very capable. In the end, she actually became the leader of the base. Moreover, after so many years, her realm had also increased a lot. Her current true strength was already at the level of a grade 9 Grand Desolate Master. However, she didn't make it too obvious. She planned to go to the Flaming Land after breaking through to level 10. At that time, she would be the absolute peak existence of the Flaming Land. But at this moment, Mo Shi appeared. And he even massacred the entire Snake Valley. Although she was forced to marry the Snake Emperor. Later on, she had already conquered the entire Snake Valley. Therefore, all the Snake Clan in the Snake Valley were her people. Those tens of thousands of Snake Clan were also the foundation for her to conquer the entire Flaming Land in the future. After all, the Flaming Land was too big. No matter how strong she was, it was impossible for her to rule every corner. But who would have thought that Mo Shi actually massacred the Snake Valley? Almost all the core disciples of the Snake Clan were killed. How could this not make her angry? Therefore, she planned to make a move on Mo Shi. Moreover, she had heard before that Mo Shi had a lot to do with the destruction of the Dragon Clan. The Island Master even guessed that the person who destroyed the Dragon Clan was Mo Shi. Therefore, she didn't act rashly. Instead, she set up a slow-acting poison in Mo Shi's room. At the same time, when she was chatting with Mo Shi last night, she also secretly drugged Mo Shi's tea. Moreover, she had seen Mo Shi drink the drugged tea with her own eyes. Even so, she was still worried. Therefore, she deliberately let the Snake Clan attack the base. At the same time, she bought time for Mo Shi and won Mo Shi's trust. Only then did she suddenly attack from behind. But unexpectedly, Mo Shi dodged this attack. However, although she was surprised that Mo Shi dodged the first attack, the smile on her face didn't fade. "You've been poisoned by the Snake Clan's poison. The more intense the exercise, the faster the poison would take effect. Let's see how long you can last tonight." As he spoke, energy beams shot out one after another towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi quickly used teleportation to dodge the attacks. Using teleportation, It was very easy to avoid these energies. However, he knew that he wouldn't be able to kill this woman just by teleporting. When the Phoenix Master saw how smoothly Wuxia used teleportation, she frowned slightly. It had already been 3 minutes, but he still couldn't kill this kid. Logically speaking, this kid had teleported for 3 minutes, so his poison should have taken effect long ago. Why hasn't it worked yet? Until now, he still hadn't figured out the depth of this kid's strength. It seemed that he had to show some of his true abilities. Thinking of this, green scales quickly covered her entire body. His legs quickly turned into a snake's body. It had a human head and a snake body. Furthermore, her body was rapidly growing in size. In just a few seconds, it turned into a giant python that was more than 5,000 meters long. Moreover, between the gaps of her scales, a fiery red glow could be seen. It was as if her body was filled with magma. At this moment, the remaining people in the base were all shocked when they saw this scene. Even though they were basically all level 10 desolate hunters, when had they ever seen such a terrifying giant python? Wuxia looked at the giant python that was more than 5,000 meters long. Species: Hell Python. Level 10 strong mutated desolate beast. Seeing this, Wuxia was slightly surprised. After this woman revealed her true form, she was actually a hell python. And this hell python was actually a level 10 strong mutated desolate beast. This was equivalent to a level 10 desolate master. It wasn't something he could resist at all. Who would have thought that such a beautiful and feminine person would be the leader of the snake clan? Moreover, it was the most terrifying species on this planet. Hell python. Why was the hell python star called hell python star? It wasn't because there were many pythons on it. It was because the most terrifying species on this planet was called hell python. However, according to the previous settings, the hell python's strength was at most a level 1 strong mutated beast. But who would have thought that after the Phoenix Master fused with the hell python's blood, she had already advanced to a level 10 strong mutated beast. She had directly broken through the settings. This was the most terrifying thing. However, it was obvious that this hell python was still not satisfied. The enormous mouth on its enormous head opened, and it was still in Wei's enchanting female voice that emanated from it. But at this time, in this situation, this female voice didn't make people feel that it was charming at all. Instead, it made people's hair stand on end. She stared at Wuxia and said, "I heard that you can transform into a giant dragon?" "Just right. I need the giant dragon's blood to complete the final evolution. When I get your blood, I will break through level 10 strong mutated desolate beast and become a super mutated desolate beast. At that time, the entire flaming beginning continent will be mine." The more she spoke, the crazier she became. Her huge face was full of malevolence. As she spoke, the ground around her began to rapidly turn into magma. At first, it was only 5 meters on both sides of her body. But soon, the magma's range rapidly expanded. 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. And it continued to expand. On the ground, almost all the buildings, humans, and snakes were swallowed by the magma. This was the most terrifying thing about the hell python. It could turn the ground within a certain range into magma. This range expanded as the hell python's strength increased. And for a 5-kilometer-long hell python like this, the magma it could create could reach a radius of more than 50 kilometers. And within the magma's range, all teleportation skills would be ineffective. Within 100 kilometers of the center of the magma, all flying skills would be ineffective. At this time, the magma's range was rapidly extending toward Wuxia. Seeing this, Wuxia retreated while summoning the sea dragon clone. At this point, only the sea dragon clone could suppress the giant python of hell. Soon, the sea dragon clone appeared. Now that Wuxia had advanced to a level 8 desolate hunter, the sea dragon clone had also become a level 8 strong mutated desolate beast. Its body length had also reached 1,800 meters. Although it wasn't as long as the hell python, its appearance was ferocious and full of majesty. At the same time, the long way on its body spread out. This made the giant python of hell unconsciously feel a trace of fear in its heart. Most importantly, although the sea dragon clone was above the magma, it didn't seem to be affected by the magma at all. It floated there out of thin air. Its body was winding and full of oppression. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.